supply is low, the prices definitely go up. What plans does the government have to provide farmers in this country with boreholes fitted with solar panels to facilitate irrigation activities in ASAL areas such as Magarini constituents, Ganze, Kilifi, and other parts of the country? Thank you.
Thank you. Omboko Milemba.
Where's the now, Honorable Speaker? Two things happened last in the 12th Parliament. 2019 October, we increased the debt ceiling to 9 trillion. But 2 months, to be exact, on 8th Wednesday, June of 2022, we increased the debt ceiling to 10 trillion. And the mover of that motion, who was Honorable Kimunya, did indicate that the specific reason for that increment was to make sure that the new government that will come to office settles down. Today, as well put by the Prime Minister, allow me to use that word, they only have fiscal space of borrowing of about 5 billion. Does it mean that therefore we were not exposed to correct understanding that the physical space for borrowing will be almost to a level of 1 trillion? And furthermore, Honorable Speaker,
One question.
this is very interesting, Honorable Speaker, that the interest rates which are consuming the highest recurrent expenditure charged on CFS, 70% of it is from internal borrowing. What is the government doing, the Prime Cabinet Secretary doing, from an economic point of view to make sure that that local borrowing is managed? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Dagoretti South, KJ.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank His Earthquakeness, the Prime CS, for quite some elaborate answers this afternoon, and also in the same breath thank the Honorable Member for Kamkunji for the questions. Mr. Speaker, if what the Prime CS is telling us is applied and executed well, I think the short-term needs shall be well satisfied. But the people of Dagoretti South and the people of Kenya are keen to know, through this opportunity that the Prime CS has to address the nation through Parliament, to know what are the long-term plans, because it is the short-term planning that got us into the mess that we are in. What are the long-term plans for us as a country to be able to move away from rain-fed agriculture so that we are able to reduce the instances of such shortages? What are the plans to reduce the over-dependence on maize and rice as staple foods? And also, what are the plans on returning to organic, traditional, regional appropriate, and famine-resistant crops? And finally,
Too many questions, only one.
And the storage, Mr. Speaker, because if we don't apply the Joseph of the Bible principle, when we are in the instances of glut, we shall always suffer these instances. So what are the plans on storage when we have the excesses in food production? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for, the member at the back, you are not on the screen. Member for Kabondo, Kasipul, or Kasipul, Kabondo? Kasipul.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to first appreciate the answer which the Prime Secretary has given in reference to the relief food distribution. My question is, what economical value does it has? By giving an example, 2 weeks back, the relief food was distributed in my constituency in Kasipul with a combination of all the entire security in the Homa Bay coming to the constituency, and all political rejects led by the cabinet secretary for ICT, with the two choppers coming all around to the same constituency.
Order, member for
So my
Kasipul.
question,
Order, member for Kasipul, you will not use question time to besmirch others. As far as I can take judicial notice, the minister called Owalo was not a candidate in any contest in the last elections. So it's unkind to call him a reject when he never presented himself for any choice. And it's good to be courteous to even those people you don't like.
thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for your correction. Actually, you are right. Him is not a political reject, but the team. But the question is, what does economical value it brings when the relief food is brought and each person just get a half kg of rice with the entire team with the two choppers moving around? What economical value does it has in reference to food distribution?
Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may answer those. We'll do a final round after this, so hold your horses.
Mr. Speaker, let me pick up the issue of what do we do so that we just don't rely on rain-fed agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I want to state that one of the key planks of the Kenya Kwanza government is to intensify investment in dams, in ponds, and in also water harvesting. Weeks ago, in Magarini area, the president, and I was there, was launching the Mwache Dam. The Mwache Dam is an investment supported by the World Bank and the Kenya government. In total, it will cost about 18 billion shillings, and that dam will provide a lot of support and relief in sections of the coast. Over and above this, the government is making efforts to have dams in many other parts of the country, and recently, in collaboration with the Italian government, for instance, there is now great hope that the Itara Dam will be revived, and I think the Aror Dam will also come up. We also know that not too long ago, when the president was in Egypt for the COP27, he had a conversation with the British Prime Minister, Sunak, and I think there is a proposal that things going well and all being equal, there could be a major investment in the Grand Falls Dam in Tana River, which would go a long way in alleviating the challenges of drought and flooding in that region. So I've just given a few examples, but under the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, there are very many programs to support this, because it is clear that we cannot continue to rely on rain-fed agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I just want to reiterate that the impact of the shilling, we peg our shilling to the dollar most of the time. And I did acknowledge in my remarks that the shilling has taken a beating, and I gave the factors that led to that depreciation. But efforts are now being put in place to stabilize. For example, the G2G program, which will ease pressure in the short term on the shilling. I've also indicated that the Treasury is deeply engaged with our development partners, and we anticipate that in the next few weeks or months, we could also benefit from some inflows of support from these development partners. And this will go a long way in also helping to deal with the depreciating shilling against other currencies. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the urban areas, Nairobi and other urban areas, it is true that the investment programs that the government must undertake going into the future must focus on the urban, because it is projected that about by maybe 2050 or even earlier, 2034 or even earlier, we could have as much as 60 to 70% of our population living in the urban areas. So clearly, the focus and policies must be such that this new dynamic is taken seriously. But in the meantime, the cash transfers that have been going on have also been helping those who are needy within urban centers. It has not been exclusive to rural areas. The safety nets, the school feeding programs, they've been also covering some sections of our urban areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to state that the proposal made about looking at seed grass, I think it's a welcome suggestion, which particularly in support of the pastoralists in our country. So we take it in good stride, and it's something that we shall get our experts to pursue a little more and see how that can be strengthened. The exchequer delays are things we want to deal with. And to be able to deal with all this exchequer delays it's going to take what we'd call enhanced revenue enforcement so that we can collect more resources that are supposed to be paid. We have to expand the tax base so that we are bringing in more people to be able to pay the tax. We also have to intensify the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. And I can tell you that so far this has been yielding very good results, where billions of shillings that have been locked in disputes are now being unlocked by Kenya Revenue Authority. So we see this as a way of improving the issue of cash at hand. But I want to state to the Kenyan people that we are going this route because our physical leg room is so limited. There's very little space. As somebody pointed out, that our debts are mega. And therefore, we have to really intensify and improve on the other areas so that we don't just continue on a borrowing spree. This is absolutely critical. And state here that we also acknowledge that there's been a delay, not just in some of the funds that support parliamentary activity, but even we have had a delay in disbursements to the county governments. And this is something we want to address. I've had a conversation, and the President has had a conversation with the Treasury to see how we can smoothen this process so that going forward we can distance ourselves from these delays, including the delays we saw in salary payments last time. These are challenges. I would like Kenyans to appreciate that these are not overnight occurrences. we are going through what was a cumulative effect of consistent omissions and commissions over a very long period of time that has put us here. And without really apportioning blame, because now we are the ones who are elected, and it is our duty to get us out of the hole. We also have to say that along the way, accountability will have to come to play. Accountability will come into play. Mr. Speaker, somebody would like to make it look like maybe the administration of Honorable Ruto is on an administration, on a revenge mission. But the fact of the matter is that we cannot stop the reports of the Auditor General. They are going to come to this House. And those reports, knowing how the Auditor General Office operates, those reports are going to be very accurate and they'll pinpoint, and the House will have to deal with the Auditor General's reports, and those who think that they may have gotten away scot-free on this mission should know that you are waiting for them down the line when you receive the Auditor General's reports. I think this is a message that all of us need to be alive to. So it is not a personal agenda, nor a personal vendetta against anybody. Parliament has got a broad mandate, Mr. Speaker. So if Parliament looks at those reports and sees it fit to commission or to order for an inquiry into any of those transactions, then the government of the day will have no option but to abide by the resolution of Parliament. So, in response to the issue of state capture, if the members feel that there should be an inquiry into state capture, who are we to go against a resolution of Parliament when it comes? Mr. Speaker, I just want to state again that we are committed to the rule of law as a country, and that is what we also campaigned about. We said we wanted to have the rule of law, and we want to state categorically that nobody is above the law. And even if there's the kind of provocation that we can see in certain quarters, we will still observe the rule of law while at the same time exercising restraints from aspects of being seen or even being vindictive. It is not the intention of this government to be vindictive. But I think it is equally important that provocation be put aside so that we can move ahead as a country. We should not destroy anybody's property. We should not engage in handling illegal arms. This is something that will be taken up seriously by the law enforcement authorities. If we want to turn this economy around and we want to get investors here, we must move on from the temptation to imagine that we can have elements who want to provoke. The government is seen either to be ineffective or is being seen to be vindictive. That is not the agenda. We want to focus on uniting the country and bringing people together and making sure that we can turn the economy around so that all these pressures that we are facing in terms of the cost of living, in terms of the difficulty and the challenges, can be put behind us. We all want to see this country grow, jobs to be created. And our program on the Kenya Kwanza mission is very clear. We want to deal with the housing programs, we want to create jobs, we want to bring in foreign direct investment, we also want to grow local investment. And Mr. Speaker, we can only do that if we have sound policies. And at this point, of course, more of them will come up when the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury will be making his remarks in a few weeks' time. Asante.
Members, can we stop here? Let me give the last 5. There are those who have consistently raised their hands. Lindgiri, you had a bite already. Let's give room to others. Member behind you. Is that Lotte or who? A member for Kagema.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is on exchequer release, mostly to the counties. Mr. Speaker, I remember between 2007 and 2013, the Prime Cabinet Secretary was the Minister for Local Government, and he gave a directive that all local authorities by 2013 to clear all pending bills. Mr. Speaker, by 2013, I think the Prime Cabinet Secretary can bear with me witness that all the local authorities had managed to clear all the pending bills, and some local authorities like Thika County Council, they had a surplus in their accounts when the new counties were coming in. Mr. Speaker, my question is, for the few days there was all the county governments cannot be able to pay their staff. Mr. Speaker, if you check the first 2013-2014 budget, they accumulated the local authorities, the budgets for local authorities in a county. Like in Murang'a County, the cumulative was around 1.5 billion. If you check, that was the budget estimate for the first financial year, that's 2013-2014. Mr. Speaker, the budget for 2020-2021 for Murang'a County was 500 million. 1 billion already has just vanished. Mr. Speaker, what I want to say, the national government is doing all efforts to make sure they manage in revenue collection. The county government are doing very little on revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, we can't have a government that's doing nothing on revenue collection. If you check 2013...
Honorable Kihungi, you are making a speech. I gave you an opportunity to ask a question.
Thank you. Mine is just to put it to the Prime Cabinet Secretary. I wish this, he can come up with a device to manage how these local authorities are managing their revenue collection, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Your point is made. Honorable Muliungi. Yes, Honorable Member for Kaspul Kabondo.
Thank you.
What is your point of order?
Correction, I'm a member of Parliament for Kasipul.
Kasipul.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
I raised a question of economical value in food distribution
Why
for
two
relief.
helicopters? I heard you. Why 2 helicopters come to distribute food?
Yeah, but I've not received.
Answer when he gets the next round.
Okay, okay.
You don't know? I had given to Muliungi, sorry, Christine.
Yes.
Let Honorable Muliungi ask first. I had given him, then I'll come to you. Honorable Muliungi, Kitui, is it Kitui Central? He's not there. Who is the member whose hand is up? I thought, Oh, Basil. Oh, you look like Muliungi from afar.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Speaker. My question to the Prime Cabinet Secretary
Yes.
is what is the government doing to attract investors generate employment opportunities, and open the economy. Thank you.
Christine Ombaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is about cheap housing that I learned, which was part of news in two days ago. There was news on cheap housing, and they went on to say that the government is planning to construct cheap houses and that the civil servants will be taxed to raise funds to construct those houses. I'm wondering how possible that will be with this project when Kenyans are so poor, salaries are so low, and life is very expensive. Will you tax Kenyans again to raise funds to construct these houses? Is it practical? Can the government postpone this project for the time being and come up with it much later? The situation is dire. It's too expensive for Kenyans to be taxed once more, especially for the cheap housing that they're talking about.
Member for Garissa Township. Who is calling for a point of order? Yes, Honorable Rindikiri. I hope it's not a guise for asking a question.
No. The mic.
The mic is next to you.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it is not good for the honorable member to issue a statement that is as no fact, is not factual. There is no taxation in the housing fund contributions. I want to make that contribution. I'm the vice chair of the housing committee, and there is nothing like taxation. If there is any, it will be brought to this parliament. So as where I'm starting, there is nothing like taxation. That's a long information.
Member for Garissa Town, Christine Ombaka, is only this house you belong to that can sanction taxation, so be alert if it comes, fight it. Otherwise, nobody can tax anybody without your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government has negotiated for a government-to-government fuel supply from the Middle East and given them a credit facility of 6 months. And I would like to ask the Chief Cabinet Secretary whether the same facility can be passed to oil marketers, considering that the government has not been able to reimburse almost 55 billion shillings in fuel subsidy for the last 1 year. Thank you.
Jane Kihara.
Thank you, Mr.
Member
Speaker.
for Naivasha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is not directly a question.
If it's not a
but
question,
let me say this.
Don't ask it.
I need to request the Prime Cabinet Secretary to meet a group of small millers, Mr. Speaker, considering that everybody is working hard to bring the price of unga down. Small millers organization, because the minister responsible is understandably very busy, and they think they have a solution to this problem, whether I would be willing to meet them, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister, you can answer those 5, and we'll Freddy Kana, you'll ask another day. Okay, Minister, just hold. I'll give Rindikiri, Alice Nganga, and Ruku. I curtailed you earlier on. One quick question each. Give Rindikiri, and I hope it's an important question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry for being persistent, but you remember 2 months ago, I did ask a question on the determination of arid and semi-arid land program for the counties which are not in the program. Mr. Speaker, I presented the question to the Minister of East Africa and ASEL. When I went there, Mr. Speaker, I was told the question need to be referred back to the Minister of Agriculture. I went to the Minister of Agriculture, I was referred to the Minister of Interior. I went to the Minister of Interior, I was referred to the Ministry of Education. Mr. Speaker, as I'm talking to you now, there are people from Commission of Revenue Allocation in Meru. They are doing determination on the same. So the question is, from where I sit, we know we have our peers in charge of this parliament. We want to know which organization, which ministry, or which agency that deals with the determination and classification of arid and semi-arid land programs for the areas specifically which are not known and which have been affected by the new development in the climate change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alice Nganga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to thank the Prime Cabinet Secretary for the responses he has given us today. Mine is simple. Whether he's aware of the criteria they are using to distribute the food relief in some urban areas, because we can hear from one constituency they received food, the other constituency they have not received food, and why the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries are going to constituencies without involving elected leaders when they are there. And I also did not hear the answer that you gave on the rising of the Mongeke and being accompanied by their new formed leadership. Would want to know the response to those questions. Thank you very much.
Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Studies across the world, Mr. Speaker, has proved that investment in education can never be abandoned to national budgets. What has the government done as far as the junior secondary school is concerned in relation to ensuring their laboratories, their workshop? The first time the Speaker has been a scam.
Honorable Ruku, and you being unfair to the minister? He's here answering questions that are so clear and pointed. Now you are veering into education. He will just tell you he'll inform the minister to come and answer.
He's the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker, and
okay, go ahead.
He's in charge of all these ministers.
Go ahead. Although the rules of relevance will be enforced in future.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to know from the Prime Cabinet Secretary the effort to ensure the junior secondary education is in line. Otherwise, we may lose a generation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ruku. Last, Mr. Onchoke. You'll be the very last one, Onchoke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. The Prime Cabinet Secretary, in his answer earlier, attributed the current situation, economic situation, to a huge public debt. And part of it he attributed to the state corporations. I'm just wondering if it could be explained what the government is doing to control debts emanating from the state corporations, because most of the time they are forgotten.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker.
Prime Cabinet, you can answer those 9 and we close there. Who is that? Mohammed, you'll have a bite another day. I'm afraid we must come to an end. Minister, let's take the member for Isiolo.
Okay.
Yes. Mheshimiwa, take an opportunity. Ask your question, please.
Thank you.
There's one next to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I was directly, always
That
fit
you have already said.
Okay,
Now,
I will. Now you are seeing me. Thank you. My question is, we have undergone the issue about drought, very heavy, and we've been thinking about interventions for all the departments and all the farmers. Pastoralists, I mean the ASAL and semi-ASAL groups, I don't know what we are going to wait in form of intervention from this. Others are given fertilizers, others are given seeds. What are the pastoralists who have lost? Because in the real sense, the people who lost what they had were the pastoralists. Can't we have what we can call restocking? Because offtake, the Prime Cabinet Secretary said there was offtake. Whether it is the offtake of the drought or the government did an offtake, I don't know. But can we get something called, something tangible, which can be in the name of restocking. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, actually, if you have been attentive, that question was asked and answered. The Prime Cabinet Secretary said they are not only focused on crops, they are going to help livestock farmers with restocking, provision of grass, and other support services. Go on, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me deal with the question of Kaspul. Mr. Speaker, I think what I can say is that it is good that the food was delivered to the people of Kaspul, and we shall make sure that when we have support, we can continue to support the constituency. The issue of cost of delivery is a valid point, that as we deliver food to the needy, it must be done in a cost-effective manner. So it's appreciated. Mr. Speaker, there was the issue of subsidy, the 57 billion subsidy. Mr. Speaker, that was precisely the point I was driving home a little bit earlier when I was saying that the government had to terminate this very, very punitive subsidy around fuel, which was not really even altering the fuel, the pump prices at the fuel, the pump prices of the fuel. And we were spending, that is you and I, and the other Kenyans out there, were spending close to 16 to 20 billion per month to deal with this subsidy. So I do acknowledge there is indeed a pending portion of about 57 billion, but this was because that subsidy, if I may use the words I used earlier, was ill-advised. And we are now suffering the consequence of that. That is why we have eliminated that fuel subsidy. Mr. Speaker, the issue of housing, which was raised, to the best of my knowledge, no tax has been effected. I think there is a misinterpretation of a message that went out that we want to grow savings. And to grow savings, the issue was the contribution of the employer and the employee to the NSSF fund. That was the message. And I think it was then distorted to give the impression that we are talking about taxing for the low-cost housing. I hope that helps resolve that particular issue. Mr. Speaker, I also want to state that some of the measures we have pronounced here, and many others, are geared towards stabilizing the economy and in attracting foreign direct investment. We have, for instance, the special economic zones, which are being put, whether we are looking at the coast. We have seen measures where pronouncements from the national government are encouraging counties to also set up industrial zones, and the national government will match the funds they put on the table to be able to grow industrial zones all over the country in our 47 counties, among others. Sound monetary policy, the rule of law. The rule of law, because if there are people marching in the streets with mungiki and guns, surely those people are not attracting foreign direct investment, let alone local investment. So these are the kind of things that we say we have to grow out of those awkward practices and be able to move forward and get the country off its feet. Mr. Speaker, our constitution is very clear that when a government is elected, you have an opportunity, that is a president, you have an opportunity to serve your first 5 years, and if the people are comfortable, they'll elect you for the next 5 years. Mr. Speaker, in the wisdom of this country, Kenyans have embedded that, and it cannot be changed. So we must make it very clear that it is not possible for anybody to have a second bite at the cherry. We now must move forward, going ahead. Mr. Speaker, I would want to say that there is no Kenyan maize being grown in Zambia. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that we have to work hard and diversify our food crops and our diet so that we reduce the overdependence on maize. And this is absolutely essential. That is why I think I made some remarks that we are also encouraging the traditional crops, and we have issued seedlings in some of these, for some of these crops. And when we have a challenge with maize, Kenyans cannot starve, but they can also use alternative food crops. Mr. Speaker, the question of determining who qualifies for support under the ASAL programs, there are very many criteria that are usually deployed. Mr. Speaker, we have experts who are able to assess the situation, and there are many criteria. How easy is the availability of food? We also work with the international partners to determine early warning systems. There are various surveys that are conducted to be able to know who are the most vulnerable groups. So there are many, many different parameters that are used to determine who would be needy when it comes to support. And that is why that support is targeted. It's not for everybody, because it's not practical to have everybody on, say, cash transfers. We have to then identify specifically who would be a beneficiary of that. I want to say that as county governments, the message of them enhancing their own local revenues is absolutely important. As much as the Constitution says that we have to have a revenue share, I think it is important that they also look at their own revenue sources and be able to upscale them. Mr. Speaker, there was an issue of state corporations. I want to say that this is something that we will bring to the table, and I would like to appeal to members of parliament on this particular area, and my appeal is as follows. When the Abdi Kadir Committee made its report on public state enterprises, at that time there were 262 state corporations or sagas or parastatals. And the intention of that report was to reduce the state corporations to 150 because a lot of them are a drain or a big load to the exchequer. Unfortunately, I have to report to the House that from the time that the Abdi Kadir report was made to date, there are now not 262 government agencies, but 350 plus. So instead of achieving the reduction there's been a growing of these public enterprises. So I want to appeal to members of parliament that if you are proposing your bills, and you have a right to propose your bills, I would request that you critically reflect on whether it is necessary to create another agency within the bill that you are proposing. Because as we speak, we are aware that there are many private members' bills on the table that are in the pipeline, and a lot of them are still proposing the creation of other public entities. It's not tenable, it's not sustainable. We have to rethink. A lot of the public enterprises that we have today, you can simply amend some rather than duplicating entities that are repeating basically the same thing. So this is a very, very passionate appeal to this August House that please scrutinize those bills so that we are not in the habit of creating more state agencies. Otherwise, what should ministries be doing? Unless it's extremely essential to create them, I would seek the intervention of the House in making sure that those bills can now help in shaping as we go forward. On the issue of the junior secondary school, this is a big challenge. Honorable members, there's a task force that was appointed by the President to look at the challenges around the CBC. This task force is about to conclude and submit its report, which will guide us on how we can navigate this very, very sensitive aspect, that is education of our children, which is so close to our hearts and also at the soul of the nation. That how do we manage this process and do the right thing? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that what the task force is doing now is something that should have been undertaken, in all honesty, before the CBC was put on the table. But now that it is with us, we cannot afford to cause any more disruptions in the lives of our children, especially as far as education is concerned. So we can only seek your indulgence that let the report of the task force come through, and through it, let us have guided and well thought out policies on how to move forward with this particular program. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of public debt and interest, I just wish to reiterate that it is a challenge. We have to continue working on it. There'll be many proposals that will come on the table, but I do not want to preempt. But I want Kenyans and Parliament to appreciate that it is not in our interest as a nation to default in any of our obligations. They are sovereign obligations. We have no intentions of defaulting. We do not want to default, but we will have to take very tough measures along the way as we move forward. And if the alternative comes to the stage where we may have to either have a conversation with some of our creditors, we shall do so in a transparent manner, in an open manner, and in a manner that will be able to be beneficial to help us ease the very stiff physical condition that we have been talking about. Mr. Speaker, I think I've fairly exhausted a number of the issues.
Yes, member for Garissa Town.
I think there was the issue of meeting the small millers.
And
yes, your message is well received.
Two things, Minister. Sit down, honorable member for Garissa Town. There are two things, the small millers that Jane Kihara is asking for you to meet, and the member for Garissa Town is asking whether the benefits of G2G fuel arrangement can be cascaded downstream to downstream players. Take your seat, honorable member. I have paraphrased your question.
I think I've dealt with the United, the small millers, that it's an issue we'll take up so that we can have the conversation with them. The G2G is supposed to benefit everybody, including the small downstream traders. It is not supposed to be confined to a few people. That is what we were running away from with those other subsidies. So it is something I will definitely take up with the Ministry of Energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, we must thank the Honorable Member for Kamkunji for bringing these two very important questions that have captivated the House this afternoon, with close to 40 supplementary questions to his two questions, cross-cutting and covering across the country. Well done, Yusuf, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Thank you for answering the questions clearly and candidly. You are now released to go back to your other assignments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Who is opening up this?
Next order.
Order number 8, motion, ratification of the 3 Hague Conventions relating to matters of children.
The Honorable Alice Nganga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move the following motion on the ratification of 3 Hague Conventions relating to matters of children. And now I move that the House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection on its consideration of the ratification of the Hague Convention on Civil Aspect of International Child Abduction, the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibilities and measures of the protection of children, and the Hague Convention of International Recovery of Children Support, another form of family maintenance, read on the table of the House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 8.4 of the Treaty making the Ratification Act 2012, approve the ratification of the following Hague Convention. 1. Civil aspect of international child abduction. 2. Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measure for protection of children. And 3, international recovery of children's support, another form of family maintenance. Honorable Speaker, the 3 conventions were referred to the Departmental Committee on Social Protection for consideration in accordance with the treaty making and ratification of Act 2012 and Standing Order 170A. After that, Honorable Speaker, we gazetted the 3 treaties on media on 5th of 2023, inviting the public to come and submit their memoranda on the 3 conventions. Honorable Speaker, on 30th March 2023, it was the deadline for the submission, and after that, we did not receive anything related to the 3 conventions. On Friday, 14th April 2023, we met with the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, the Registrar of Treaties, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, and other offices of the Attorney General, and we discussed these treaties at length. In this regard, in the respect of the Hague Convention on the civil aspect of international child abduction, the committee observed that the convention sought to protect children from harmful effect of international abduction by encouraging prompt return of the abducted children to their country of habitual residence and to organize and secure effective right of access to a child. Honorable Speaker, further in respect to the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition and enforcement and cooperation in the respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children, the committee observed that the convention sought to empower competent authorities to protect children and to cooperate in a wide range of cross-border situations, offering to states practical means to fulfill international obligations arising from the UN Nation Convention on the Rights of the Children. Honorable Speaker, finally, in the respect to the Hague Convention on the International Recovery of Children's Support, another form of family maintenance, the committee observed that the convention sought to ensure the effective international recovery of children support and other forms of family maintenance. In light of the foregoing and pursuant to Section 8 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, as read together with Standing Order 170A, the committee recommends that the following House: 1, the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, and 2, the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for protection of children, and 3, the Hague Convention on the International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance. Honorable Speaker, allow me to note that the approval of 3 conventions is a landmark, and today is indeed a very historical day for every child in this country, for every woman in this country as well as men. Why do I say so? Once this House approved the ratification of 3 conventions, gone will be the days where men or women abscond their duties by impregnating our Kenyan women and running away in other countries to avoid taking care of their children. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to point it out. When Thika Superhighway was being constructed, we have so many Chinese children who are left behind because the contractor was from a Chinese country, and once they were done with constructing the superhighway, we were left with so many Chinese children behind. But you know, the Kenyan women, they don't know where they can get their fathers because they left the country. But with this treaty, gone are those days when you start looking for the father of the child. Madam Speaker, gone will be the days where women run away and leave their children behind and go and hide in diaspora with zero parental responsibility. Honorable Speaker, gone are the days one parent takes away children and flee to another country and limit access one parent. Honorable Speaker, 2 weeks ago I had visited Canada, and while I was there, I met this woman or this lady who they moved to Canada as a family. But later down the line, the father of the children or the husband to the woman came back home to Kenya and left the woman who was not working, came back to Kenya and left them there. He did not care what they were going to do or what they were going to feed on or what the children were going to use to go to school. And this treaty is coming to stop that. And Honorable Speaker, that's why we are asking as the committee we adopt this treaty so that we can protect our children. These 3 conventions, simply put, will allow Kenyan women or men who have judgment issued by Kenyan courts, either for custody or parental responsibility, maintenance of return of a child, to just walk to our Attorney General's office and deliver the judgment there. The Attorney General Office will then coordinate with our Ministry of Labor and Social Protection under the National Council for Children's Service and our Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have the judgment taken to a foreign mission in the foreign country where the parental avoiding parental responsibility is hiding. Our foreign mission will then coordinate with the authorities of the foreign countries, which is also part to the convention, to trace the runaway parent, and the order shall be enforced if it was issued in the Kenyan courts. This is a historical day indeed for our country, and it is a legacy. I pray that the Committee on Social Protection for the 13th Parliament shall be remembered for years to come. Honorable Speaker, this is certainly a great achievement for the children of this country, and as a chairperson of the Committee on Social Protection, I am proud to have been put part of this journey. Recently, like I have said, we have seen so many women as well as men suffering because one parent has decided to run away from the responsibilities they are supposed to be doing. But with this treaty, it is going to stop that. Finally, Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank the members of this Committee on Social Protection for their diligence in concluding the consideration of these three Hague Conventions, which are very technical in nature. The last Parliament did not consider the convention despite having been submitted by the executive. I am particularly happy that the members of this committee did not prioritize the consideration of the convention, despite having lots on their trays as pending business. Allow me to also thank the Secretary of the committee for facilitating the conclusion of these three conventions. Honorable Speaker, it is good to note and to let the House know, once the House adopts this report, we will walk to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and deposit our report to them, where after that, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and some of the committee members will fly all the way to Hague to make sure that Kenya has become one of those countries who are protecting their children. With these few remarks, it is my pleasure and duty, proud moment for the children of Kenya and men and women of this great country, that I beg now to move this motion and urge the House to adopt this motion. And also, Honorable Speaker, I want to request Honorable Hillary to second the motion, the Vice Chair of the committee to second the motion. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me begin by saying it has been 7 years of a tedious process of trying to seek the House to adopt this ratification treaty, Madam Speaker, which began in the 11th Parliament when on 22nd December 2016, the Cabinet approved a memo on the ratification, acceptance, and accession of the three conventions. The convention and their memoranda, Madam Speaker, were tabled in the National Assembly on 4th of April 2017 and then forwarded to the relevant departmental committees for review and action. The 11th Parliament, Madam Speaker, hence received the submissions for consideration pursuant to Section 8 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012 and Standing Order number 170A of this House. Madam Speaker, upon the committal, when the 11th Parliament lapsed, the 12th Parliament came in, it went without finishing this job, Madam Speaker, and when the 13th Parliament came into being, this committee on 17th January 2022 was seized on this matter, and upon the committal to the committee, Madam Speaker, the committee moved very fast to receiving submissions from relevant stakeholders and doing its report, quickly completing it on 25th April 2023. Honorable Speaker, the three conventions will be a great addition to the laws and policies of our country, and as the chair stated, the Hague Convention on the civil aspects of the international child abduction shall protect children from harmful effects of wrongful removal or retention and ensure that prompt return to their country of habitual residence, as well as to secure protections of their rights. Secondly, Madam Speaker, with the rising cases of child abduction, the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children shall ensure recognition and enforcement of decisions made by Kenyan courts relating to parental responsibility within the contracting states. Honorable Speaker, I therefore urge this House not to delay further the ratification of these conventions, and it is important to note that these conventions are retroactive and can therefore be applied to prosecute matters that happened in the past for which the cases are still pending, including the cases Madam Chair has alluded to of the superhighway parents. Honorable Speaker, the signing and ratification of this convention by Kenya will demonstrate Kenya's commitment to the collective action to the improved regulation of the subject matter of the convention, and this will bring positive consequences both to the country and to the other contracting states. Honorable Speaker, while I wish to pass my sincere gratitude to the members of the committee and the Secretariat who took part in the process of considering this convention, the work that went into making this process successful was immense. The teamwork and dedication is commendable, and it is my wish that the committee continues with the same spirit and momentum. Honorable Speaker, it is now my humble pleasure to second and support the recommendation of the committee as contained in its report that this House approves the ratification of 1, the Hague Convention of the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, 2, the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for protection of children, and 3, the Hague Convention on the International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance. Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Social Protection on its consideration of the ratification of the Hague Convention on Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, the Hague Convention on Jurisdiction, applicable law, and recognition enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children, and also the Hague Convention on the International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8.4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act of 2012, approves the ratification of the following Hague Conventions. 1, civil aspects of international child abduction. 2, jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for protection of children. And 3, international recovery of child support and other forms of family maintenance. I now call upon the Honorable Member for Tharaka Nithi, Honorable Susan Duyo.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Committee on Social Protection for finding time to meet with the various departments, especially the Ministry for Labor and Social Protection, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. Madam Speaker, this ratification of the treaty, or rather the 3 conventions, have come at the right time. Madam Speaker, I've been a children officer for quite some time, and I am able to understand the harmful passages that people in Kenya, the Kenyan children and the parents are going through. Madam Speaker, especially the issue of abduction. Abduction is an issue that has been being performed in Kenya, and especially in children's homes, whereby foreigners come into this country, abduct our children and run away with them. And a case in Imenti South whereby a parent came to learn that the child that disappeared from home and already been adopted by a foreigner. This child has quite been very difficult. Madam Speaker, with these treaties and these conventions, especially the Convention on Abduction, we are very much assured that as Kenyans, when our children are abducted or when they are retained wrongfully, we're able to get them through the central authorities, especially when they are countries that are states to these conventions. Madam Speaker, look at a case whereby a foreigner has come to this country, had an affair with a Kenyan woman, impregnated the Kenyan woman, and abandoned the Kenyan woman with the children. There are foreigners who come to this country, move around with our women in the name of getting married to them, and when they are parting ways, they run with our children, and our Kenyan women or the mothers have no access to these children. Madam Speaker, with this treaty, with these 3 conventions, our parents in Kenya who have been denied access to their children through their running away with the foreigners are able to access their children and also attain the parental responsibility. Madam Speaker, with people who have been misusing our girls, people who have been sexually abusing our girls, moving around with them, impregnating them and running away and escaping the parental responsibilities. Madam Speaker, we are very much now assured that with these treaties, our children will always access parental responsibilities because with central authorities whereby we can claim and complain and be sure that our children are going to be taken care of. Even the issue of custody, Madam Speaker. We know that a young child or a child that is less than 8 years or 10 years belongs to the mother at the first instant. Madam Speaker, even with this case and even with the Kenyan Children's Act of 2022, we found people who don't care that they have to run away with our children, they have to avoid the parental responsibilities, they have to deny their mothers the initial custody. Madam Speaker, with these 3 treaties, Kenya is going to some place. That's why, Madam Speaker, I really request and urge this Honorable House to adopt these 3 conventions so that Kenyan children can be taken care of. Madam Speaker, thank you, and I thank the House.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the member for Migori County, Honorable Fatuma Mohammed, also known as Full Network.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Not also known as Full Network. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I stand with authority as a mother, as a daughter. That means I'm also a child. I support this convention. It has become a norm for our young girls, and to be specific, the white men walk into this country. They leave their families behind in their countries where they come from. They cheat our little girls, get them pregnant, and then leave them there, knowing very well there is nowhere this girl will get help from. I have a case that I'm very sympathetic with. And to mention, a Dutch citizen came here, got a 26-year-old girl pregnant, frustrated the girl. The girl went into depression in Malindi. She got cancer. The girl was moved back to Nairobi to live with their family, with the girl's family. The girl died, frustrated. And all the man was doing was push the girl to death. All the time he would call and tell the girl, anyway, you're going to die, you're a moving dead body, all sorts of things. This girl moved and went to court, children's court, before her death, and requested the court that in case I die, I would request that my poor mother takes care of my little boy. The boy is with the grandmother, the girl died, but the man is not giving them peace, threatening them, telling them that he's going to go to big courts, they will get arrested, he will put them in jail forever because he has money. Honestly, we need protection for our children. The child does not even go to school because the father is not providing. And the father is saying that there's nothing you can do because you don't know where to get me, and I am married back at home. Such a scenario, surely we really need protection for our girls, for our children. I honestly support this. We have older people taking advantage of our younger girls, especially the rich, especially the powerful men. And once the girl gets pregnant, the girl is threatened with either you abort or you give birth and I take the child. And if that happens, that the girl takes into the pressure and gives birth and gives the child to the rich parent, rich father, the poor little girl will never see that child again. In most cases, where they move to court, they don't times are also, in their own words, would call it hot air, and the poor little girl will have nowhere to run to. I beg that we protect our children. The children did not request to be brought to this world. They don't know under what circumstances they came to this world. They should not be put under those circumstances that they don't understand. A child has a right more than even a grown-up. In the eyes of the Lord, in the eyes of justice of this country, we need to protect our children. May God rain down here and take this convention to action so that our children are taken care of, just as the mothers also need protection. Because some of the women that give birth to these children, also sometimes divorce do happen. And the court would rule that the mother and the child should be taken care of. But you find that the court, same court, the rich person will go back to that court and the person will be told that now you're bankrupt, you can't take care of Fatuma with that child anymore. And then the mother falls into the circumstances that the child is in. I beg to support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Ruangwe, Honorable Lillian Gogo.
I think I need another mic. Yeah, this is working. I appreciate you for the good work that you're doing, Honorable Speaker. A very good representation of the women folk. I belong to the Committee of Social Protection as a member, and I want to thank my chairperson and the vice chair for well articulating the issues on the 3 conventions that we have brought to the floor of this House, Honorable Speaker, for debate so that the House can approve the ratification of the 3 conventions. Honorable Speaker, from the point where I stand, a lot of discussion was put on this to see the pros and the cons of the ratification of these particular conventions. And it is important in the interest of our country, as Kenya, to join in the community of nations to ratify conventions that are beneficial to our great nation, Kenya. Honorable Speaker, these particular conventions are also in line with the supreme law of the land, that is the Constitution of Kenya 2010, under Article 53, that provides for the protection of the great children that are born of Kenyan and non-Kenyan nationals. It is important, Honorable Speaker, that our children are not subjected to abuse, neglect, harmful cultural practices, all forms of violence, Honorable Speaker, inhumane treatment and punishment, and hazardous and exploitative labor. These conventions provide for support recovery, Honorable Speaker, that where we have 2 nationals involved in the bearing of a child, and one goes and abandons their responsibility, that this particular law can be invoked so that these children can get support from the parent, either the mother or the father who has abandoned the child. Also, there is also parental responsibility, Honorable Speaker, which is also provided for in the Children Act that was passed in 2022, the Children Act 2022, that allows or provides for equal responsibility in parenting. Responsibility in terms of access to the child, and also support to the child, and any other issue that relates to these children. Honorable Speaker, we find more often than not other nationals leaving their children in Kenya, especially if they come to Kenya to work, or they may come here also for conferences. And at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, we find their children littered all over in Kenya, leaving especially our young Kenyan girls who are lured into having sexual responsibility with these outsiders or these visitors. They leave their children behind, Honorable Speaker. And some of the girls who are lured into these kinds of acts, Honorable Speaker, some of them are underage. And in case this happens, Honorable Speaker, then with this particular convention can be invoked together with our Honorable Speaker. Other than the highway children, we also have the Batuk children that have been left in Nanyuki, where we have the British Army training unit in Nanyuki in Kenya. And this is a matter that was clearly followed by the last parliament, 12th parliament. I was a party to it. And the ratification, if the House approves the ratification, Honorable Speaker, it's going to be a move in the right direction. And I support this particular move by the committee. I know it's going to benefit our children, Honorable Speaker. I thank you for the opportunity.
Member for Trans Nzoia County, the Honorable Lillian Sioi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to support the adoption of this motion. I stand here as the women rep of Trans Nzoia, and I'm here to articulate issues to do with women, of which this one is attaching us directly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our women or our girls in our constituencies or in our country have really suffered under the hands of the foreigners and even our men here. Madam Speaker, I support this because our girls, despite having measures having been put across for them to be supported in case the marriage is not there, our girls are still struggling, because most of the time it happens for a shorter period, and within no minute they are left again to continue struggling alone, or go back to court to go and complain again that the children are not being supported. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say, I also have one girl who has really suffered because she gave birth with a white from Italy, and she gave birth to 2 children, and as I speak now, the girl is struggling alone. And you know, the children are in primary schools, of which it's even difficult for some of us to support them, because we are not supposed to give bursaries to primary students. Instead, we give to secondary schools. So, Madam Speaker, I support this because our children are really suffering in the hands of the foreigners. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Busia County, Honorable Catherine Omayo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this motion. First of all, children belong to the government. Sometimes where a mother or a responsible adult is not involved, I think we should up our game as a government to make sure that all children in Kenya are protected and get their rights from when they are born. These incidences have been happening year in, year out, and in a million years, we are still here talking about this. I think it is a responsibility of all of us, whether with limited education or not. Once a child is involved in a family or a community, we should all be on guard to see how they are raised, the environment, what they are getting as they are raised, and if maybe because of poverty, some people neglect and it reaches to this level where children are at danger, then I think that's when the children departments in every maybe towns are supposed to go out of their comfort zones. Many times we have been called in my county in a children's office to go and take some of these children, and as they seek to get to the bottom of the line why the children have been neglected or they have been reported to have gotten lost, we are asked to help, and yet facilities to even shelter these children in every county, I don't think they are there. So there are so many other things that actually make this a little complicated, and yet it is not supposed to be complicated. So I support this motion, and I know that where Kenya is today after independence, we should be implementing more things than theoretically narrating. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like this motion is women top heavy. I can see the Honorable Member for Sirisia, Honorable John Waluke.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this very important motion, Madam Speaker. The adoption of this motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is important for us as a House to make sure that we adopt this report, because many people have been taking our children, some going to them to abroad without the permission of even the parents. Many children, Madam Speaker, have been reported to have gotten lost. People steal children in hospitals, in homes, in town, Madam Speaker. So we need to put very strict laws that can protect our children, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we speak on this motion, I've seen my colleagues, women MPs, talking mostly protecting a girl child, Madam Speaker. But a child is a child, whether it's a boy or a girl, Madam Speaker, should be protected. Madam Speaker, Article 53 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, protects children of this country, all children of this country, Madam Speaker, and citizens of Kenya, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the laws that are there, Madam Speaker, I think they are weak. And this is the time I want to thank motion, Madam Speaker. And us as the House, Madam Speaker, this is the time to adopt this report, Madam Speaker, so that we protect children of this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Funyula constituency, Professor Dr. Wilberforce Ounda.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We were being worried that the debate was being hijacked by our female colleagues, yet the process leading to the child is a two-way traffic, it's very unlikely to happen one-way traffic, at least not the conventional and the traditional way. Honorable Speaker, as I stand here to look at the Hague Convention on Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, the Hague Convention recognition, enforcement, and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children, and thirdly, the Hague Convention on International Recovery of Child Support and other forms of family maintenance. Honorable Speaker, it's being presented here pursuant to the relevant standing order, the question that requires any convention or any treaty must be ratified in this country for it to be part and parcel of the laws of Kenya. Standing order number 216 likewise compels the National Assembly to process any treaty that's presented before it. Honorable Speaker, we have raised these concerns in the past, that the treaty-making act is designed in such a way it never gives the people of Kenya, or the people of Kenya specifically, any chance to review and enrich these various treaties and conventions. It is given as it is, take it as it is, and the most drastic aspect, you either approve or reject it. But since it contains some positives concerning the people of Kenya, we have tended to approve it in its entirety, even though there could be points of objection. And probably this, Honorable Speaker, lends to the statement by the Registrar of Treaties in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, Ambassador James Waweru, when he observed that there is, when you look at paragraph 78 of the report, that there is need to sensitize the judiciary and key government ministries and departments on the obligations under this convention. We are ratifying a treaty where probably the people, the organs that are mandated to implement the same, have not been sensitized adequately, and therefore we are going to spend very many years grouping the dark. But as we have always said, at any given time, the welfare and the best interest of the child should precede any technicalities. And that's why when I stand here today, I support the adoption of the various treaties. Honorable Speaker, let us be very clear from the word go that child protection, child welfare is a shared responsibility. And the Constitution clearly says a child belongs to both mother and father, regardless of the economic, political, social, or whatever status of either of the parents. And that's why you find our courts have been very progressive in the interpretation on the issue of child welfare, child custody, child parties. Honorable Speaker, it has been a tendency in this country, and I want to echo the sentiment of Honorable Nganga, being the MP for Thika and Thika Road, which is the case example of children. The girls will wake up in the morning, they have children, but they're unable to distinguish between the same looking Chinese to know who is the father. They would walk there in the morning, all of them squinted eyes, they're unable to tell who is the father. I would want to imagine that there must be a process, either scientific or unscientific, that can allow our girls to identify among these Wazungus. You know, Wazungus, Chinese, and the rest at times tend to look the same, Honorable Speaker. So when you look at them like the Koreans, the Japanese, it's difficult to tell who the difference between the two. Honorable Speaker, if you would add just a second or a minute so that I drive a certain point.
That's okay.
Honorable Speaker, therefore, we must revert back. That's why we are saying these conventions are not domesticated. Because at times, once those guys run away, you know, they will take you to a ping pong game. Say, now let's go for DNA. They will look like, they go to DNA, it reads negative. So the girl is left in tears. He does not know who is actually the father of the child. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, as we domesticate this, we need to look at our various acts of big acts. And I'm happy Honorable Millie Odhiambo is here, who is a guru in this area. We must look at way of identifying, noting this. Honorable Speaker, again, we seem to insinuate that it's only the girls or the women who are affected. There are also very many cases where women are abandoning children in the village to go work in Dubai, in Arab countries, and fail for child support here. So this notion that it's only the women who are affected is misguided, and that's why some of the agendas being pursued by women activists and women groups get lost because they seem to only look at it from one angle. I would urge them to also, again, as you synthesize, as you talk, we must look at those women who abandon children in the villages. They go make money wherever they go and refuse to support. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Suba North, Honourable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the 3 conventions that have been presented by the Committee on Social Protection. The Convention of 23rd November 2007 on the International Recovery of Child Support and Other Forms of Family Maintenance. Secondly, Convention on Jurisdiction, Applicable Law, Recognition, Enforcement, and Cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children, concluded on the 19th of October, 1996. And third, the Convention on Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, concluded on 25th of October, 1980. Madam Speaker, let me thank Honorable Wundo for recognizing my work in the children's sector. Indeed, as a matter of fact, most of my professional work has actually been around the issue of the rights of children and the rights of women, but primarily on the rights of children. Madam Speaker, I think ab initio, I just want to indicate that by virtue of Article 2.5 and 2.6 of the Constitution, that says that any treaty that is ratified by Kenya becomes the laws, part of the laws of Kenya, I would want to actually call on the leadership to consider bringing treaties one by one. Madam Speaker, I would like you to, Honorable Speaker, I plead your attention. I know you are consulting with my sister, but I plead your attention because I'm seeking and begging for one thing that you can actually take forward as House leadership. By virtue of Article 2.5 and 2.6, once these conventions pass this floor, they become part of the laws of Kenya. So we can make direct reference to them as laws of Kenya. Yet, we are dealing with them as one law. We are dealing with 3 conventions on different aspects of child protection, but we are bringing all 3 of them at once. If I were to compare them to other laws, it means we are actually dealing, it's almost like an omnibus, but on substantive issues of 3 laws. So I would want to request that in future, committees bring 1 treaty at a time. And the reason is also on the issues that Honorable Wundo is raising, because they raise very diverse issues, and if I wanted to raise all those issues in relation to each and every treaty, I may not have the time because of the also scarcity of time. But also because once we pass this, it becomes part of the laws of Kenya. And I also want to indicate that contrary to what my good friend Honorable Wundo says, under the Treaty Making and Ratification Act, when the committee is considering, you can actually consider putting a reservation to an article you do not agree with. Like I'll give you an example, there's a direct article that goes against, of one of the treaties that goes against provisions of the Constitution of Kenya. And because if we pass it, it means it will already be directly in conflict with a constitutional provision, and yet we'll have given it a stature of a constitutional provision because it is anchored in the Constitution. So it actually creates a problematic issue. Madam Speaker, Kenya is actually ahead in terms of our own domestic laws. We have the Children Act, among several other issues, among several other laws that deal with comprehensively with these issues. And in the last parliament, just before we went home, we passed a very comprehensive law dealing with most of these issues, child protection, issues of custody, civil aspects. I know Kenya has ratified the ones that have the criminal aspect, Madam Speaker. I can see my time is running out, but I just wanted to point out, Madam Speaker, it's my concern.
You can have an extra 2 minutes.
Thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my concern is number one, in reference to children born out of wedlock. The conventions do not seem to be addressed this. And in fact, one of them addresses in the negative. If you look at the convention that deals with jurisdiction under Article 4, it says the convention does not apply, A, to the establishment of or contesting of a parent-child relationship. So it actually says that you cannot question parenthood under that article. Yet Article 53 of our Constitution says you can by questioning who the parent is. So it means we can even do DNA to establish whether a man is actually the father of the child, because the mother is usually kind of obvious. So in that case, Madam Speaker, it means it sort of goes against our own Constitution. And then if you look at, Madam Speaker, the other one that is the same convention also deals with the issue of when a child is born. And this one actually recognizes children at the point of when they are born. Yet our Constitution recognizes children from conception. So this also goes directly against our own Constitution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, because of time, you notice I'm actually just focusing on one convention. And that is why I'm requesting that in future, so that we actually see where there are those tensions that are likely to conflict with our own laws, it is good if we bring one convention at a time. And it is possible. Even if we did this immediately after they present the second and the third, it is still possible because we are actually making law. But the challenge that I see us faced with is that we sometimes think that ratification of treaties is like passing a report. No, this is legislation. It's not a motion. It is not a report, just a report. It is a report because it comes from the committee, but we are, after this, we'll have passed a law, and once the executive then goes ahead and ratifies, it becomes binding on Kenya. I think the only saving face for me is that we have also ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child, so even where there are certain tensions, we might fall back to that. But if you have very sharp lawyers, these are some of the things that will find their way into a constitutional court. Otherwise, just to encourage the committees, please in future, if you don't agree with one, make a reservation very boldly in relation to that article. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I do support, and thank you once again for extending for me the time. I appreciate.
Honorable Millie, I know your many years that we spent in the child rights world. That's why I gave you a little extra time. But I think I will ask that the clerk's desk takes a note of the need to separate them and bring that to the attention of the relevant committee. So I think, Honorable Alice, Chairperson, it should come back to your committee just to ensure that they are then processed out of here separately. I think that's a good suggestion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, now I call upon the Honorable Member for Kitui South, Honorable Rachel Nyamai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity also to add my voice on this very important motion where we are dealing with ratification of these three treaties that has been presented by the Committee on Social Protection. Honorable Speaker, let me first of all congratulate the committee, both the Chair, the Honorable Alice Nganga, and the Vice Chair, the Honorable Hillary, for concluding this in the shortest time possible, bearing in mind that this is a matter that has been with Parliament and also with the committee for almost 7 years. So I would like to congratulate them for that. Madam Speaker, I listened very keenly, and I also had a chance to look at the report to the chair when she was making the presentation that these treaties will enhance the rights of children, parents, and we know that this is a matter that is happening in our country where children fail to access both their parents because of one situation or another. The rights of parents not being able to access their children, and not only the women, because we need to look at it both ways. There are also men who may not be able to also access children who are with their female partners. So, and also the rights, Madam Speaker, of children to be taken care, to have education, to have shelter, to have food, to have love, and possibly be able to access all their parents. So, Madam Speaker, I really support this report. I would like to go straight to a matter that was raised by the chair on the children that are as a result of Thika Road, children as a result of Kibwezi Kitui Road, children as a result of Kenol Sagana Road. Madam Speaker, this matter needs to be taken seriously because most of the women that found themselves in this situation have children who they are not even able to name the parents, the fathers, more so, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, what I would like to encourage our girls, because I am personally affected because of the construction of Kibwezi Kitui Road, is that I must tell the women that make sure that you can identify the person that you are relating with, and make sure that when times are good, Madam Speaker, you get hold of that passport, make a photocopy, keep one of the copies with your mother, your sisters, your brothers in different places, so that when things go wrong, you have a possibility of at least identifying the name of that person, Madam Speaker. All our girls in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Laikipia, Madam Speaker, where we have the British Army training, we have our women who are stranded with children who they cannot name. Our women should not just live with white people and call them Mzungu. Some of them are not Mzungu, Madam Speaker. Some are Chinese, others are Pakistanis, others are Koreans. But our people just refer to all of them as Mzungu. They must identify them. And the best way to identify them is when things are good, get that passport and make sure you make a copy, because things can go wrong, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also listened to the chair, and the chair said that their committee will walk to the government offices and present this report. And also they'll be able to go to The Hague and present this report. I would also like to encourage them to support women, especially those who are not educated, to make sure that they get hold of the judgments, the court judgments. They may not be able to do this because this is not their everyday work, but there are government agencies that can pick these cases and ensure that they go through the judgments and they support our people, Madam Speaker. So I really appreciate that I got a chance, Honorable Speaker, to put my voice in this very important motion, and I would like to congratulate the committee and tell other committees to do the same, to take matters that have been in their committees and deal with them as fast as possible, as the Chair, Honorable Alice Nganga, and the Honorable Hillary have done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members, and I note that there is a few members to my right. You have an opportunity, you will speak, because we have sufficient time. If you just allow me to dispense with those who will take over from the seat here. The Honorable Peter Kaluma, member for Homa Bay Town.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm looking at the content of the report. I have not done so in full. The warnings that I would want to begin with, Madam Speaker, is that these are being referred to as the Hague Conventions. It bothers me that we somehow want to ratify these conventions and treaties, and we keep signing them as if we are obligated to do so. In fact, as if we are doing nothing else, not considering why they should be signed or not. Madam Speaker, by rushing to sign in the manner I see us doing, and I'm saying this, Madam Speaker, because I'll want to give some recommendations in terms of how we deal with treaties in future. This is the reason, Madam Speaker, states like the United States, states like Israel, states like China, states like Russia did not sign the ICC treaty for Hague. But they come shouting to you that when you engage in such acts, you have to be taken to the Hague. And you remember, Madam Speaker, based on our history, we had the 4th president of the country being tried at the Hague. The current president of the country still has a pending case at the Hague. And by the way, we are not bothered that the states which shout they are after these rights most are themselves not signatories. The question that I would be asking if I were in charge of this convention is, number one, do these states we are talking about, whether the United States, the so-called superpowers, economic superpowers, whether it is Russia, whether it is Israel, whether it is the G20, have they signed?
I think I have to make you stick to the topic. I know where you're going.
Yes.
But this we are just talking about, these are child rights conventions.
I'm fine with them, Madam Speaker, and you remember you are
They have 3 separate names. The civil aspects of international child abduction, jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement, cooperation, parental responsibility, measures for protection of children, and then on international recovery of child support. Surely, Honorable Kaluma, I taught you child law.
I get you. That is the point I was making,
Now
Madam
you want
Speaker.
to go to another topic.
Madam Speaker, I remember that was so many conventions which were ratified and agreed upon by the humanity of nations. And Madam Speaker, you remember in your children and the law classes, I got straight A's. In fact, I was sweeping marks as a person who understands them. The point I'm making, Madam Speaker, is that howsoever they are called, they are originating from Hague. And what I'm talking to Madam Speaker before we go to the content, because I'm going to the content, is the alacrity with which we rush to sign things. Other states shouting human rights never sign them. And so the question I'm asking to the committee is that before you brought these conventions for our consideration, because this is part of the ratification, as Honorable Millie say, which other states have you confirmed to have signed them? Number 2, Honorable Speaker, it is very good nowadays to say children's rights. And on the face of it, Madam Speaker, you know better than me how the realm of international treaties, international conventions is operating now. When they tell you children's rights, they'll tell you all children. But do we bother to question who are all children if it is moving from a child? When they tell you all women in all their diversity, do you know what they are talking about? Your guess is as good as mine. So my hope, Honorable Speaker, is that the committee did not just end up at presenting this report in terms of the summaries we are seeing here, but you've weeded through with the knowledge of where the world is going in terms of these provisions to know that, number 1, they are in accord with our Constitution. Number 2, they are in accord with our acts, particularly the one relating to the Children's Act, which will also be amending in a short while. Because I'm not specific to those parts, Madam Speaker, I would thank the committee for bringing this report, but, Honorable Speaker, I would hesitate to
You can finish your sentence in exactly 10 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your gratis award. I would say beyond the passage of this motion, if it will pass, we go back to dig to ensure that they accord with our existing laws. And in terms of ranking, we need to amend the Judicature Act and the Constitution to say that howsoever ratified, they will rank below our statutes and the Constitution. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Your point, yes. Your point of order, Chairperson.
Madam Speaker, before we brought this report to the House, we just did not sit down as the committee as alone. We engaged many lawyers as well as the AG and the registrar. And we did not take even one day. We have been doing it ever since. So by the time Honorable Kaluma sees us bringing this motion to the floor of the House, it means we did what we ought to have done. And thoroughly, Madam Speaker, we cannot just rush things. We know this is a house of laws, and laws are made here. So if you see us bringing that motion to this level, it means we have done our due diligence. We have done what a committee ought to have done, and that is why we are here. And that's why we want members to contribute. We see where we are headed, and to see, even if it is they need to add to the report. But we are listening. When we come here, we want to tell the floor of the House that we have done our due diligence, and that's why we are here today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I think that matter was raised and already directed that the committee separates. We can look at, since the debate is going beyond today, you've said that they will be separated.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
But I know that the thorough work has been done.
Yeah,
because I know the nature of the committees. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also want to say, when we are looking at these three treaties, it's only that the report is one. When we are looking at them, we looked at them separate. We never bundled them together. They were separate, Madam Speaker. And they are still separate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
What is your point of order, Honorable Kaluma?
I'm normally the last person to diminish the good work of my colleagues in all committees. The point I'm making is that the committee ought to, and remember I cautioned, ought to tell us what is lacking in our constitution in terms of Article 53 and the Children's Act, which we are going to get only if we sign this treaty. That is the point I'm making, and that is the distinction I would request as we continue contributing we make, because if we don't approach it that way, then we risk signing things, languages are now nuanced, you sign them, yet they are not adding anything to us while exposing our children as a country. That is the point I was making. Otherwise, I salute the work of all our committees of parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Kaluma. And I think, yes, and this, like I said, this debate will go on beyond today, which means the members of the committee will have an opportunity to respond to what Honorable Kaluma has raised. Thank you. And now I'd like to call upon the Honorable Member for Kiambaa, the Honorable Kawajiko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate the chairperson of the Social Committee and the Vice Chair for bringing up this report. And we are cognizant of the fact that we are in trouble, especially whereby we are having international players within our society, whereby they leave us with a lot of burdens as far as, giving our young girls and taking advantage of our young girls and the poor economy of poor status of our economy, whereby they have to rely and to depend on those people for their survival, Madam Speaker. I support the motion because in most cases you realize that the most affected people are the women and the children. If the father and the kid and leave the child behind and go back to repatriate back to their country, you realize that those children really suffer. They become the street boys and street girls within our state, Madam Speaker, because there is nobody who is there to take care of them, Madam Speaker. By this, a treaty and convention that has been brought in the floor of the House, we have seen incidences whereby majority of the people affected, they are women. But we have also seen that the convention is also stating it's not only for the men to take care of the women and the girls and the children that they leave behind, but we also realize it is also giving the women it's also bringing to board the women also, whereby they are saying that even when the women run away and leave their children under the care of men and hide in diaspora with zero parental responsibilities, this convention will take care of those women by making sure that they are held to account to take care and to be responsible, to take care of the children, to make sure that they give parental guidance as far as the motherly love for their children is concerned, and also make sure that they participate in bringing up these children, Madam Speaker. We have seen many Hague treaties, and we hope that this will not be in one of those many Hague treaties, whereby that there is no one who is enforcing this law. But on this convention also, we have seen a situation whereby they are saying that if there is any order from the court within the jurisdiction of our country, and there is any court order relating to any child care or child support, the person who is in charge or who is held to account will take this order, and then the Ministry of Social and Protection will take the order, present it to the Attorney General, then the Attorney General will present it to the Foreign Affairs, then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will take the orders to the mother country and make sure that those orders are enforced, and the person responsible for leaving their child behind will be taken responsible to make sure that he or she commit and take care of those children, Madam Speaker. We therefore support this treaty. We commend the Committee on Social Protection for making sure that there will be a way to follow up, even after probably these people leave their children behind, even after the women, even if the women leave the children behind and probably go to live in the diaspora looking for green pastures, and they are not able to take care of their children, this convention will take care of such matters to make sure that they are brought to book and they take pure responsibility of their children, whether it is the men, whether it is the women, any person who is involved. We will be able to go beyond our borders and take care and bring those people culpable for the action to this country so they can be able to take care of their children and own up their responsibility. Madam Speaker, in our society today, we have so many single mothers. We have so many single mothers who are taking care of their children, and the fathers are around. It is prudent for every man who is responsible to take care of their children as it is required by the law and the Constitution, so that at least we can reduce the numbers of the single mothers we have within our society. And every child was not born alone by the mother. There must be a father who was responsible to make sure that that child came into this world. Therefore, I support the convention, and we urge the government to take that responsibility and make sure that they enforces this convention. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Kiamba. The Honorable Caroline Ngeleche, Member for Elgeyo Marakwet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, and should appreciate because I've really waited for that chance. I want to, first of all, appreciate the member, Alice Nganga, together with her committee, for bringing in the very important issue. Madam Speaker, you realize that it is a right of every child to be taken care of. In layman's language, we always say these children didn't apply or didn't request to be born. It should therefore be the responsibility of the two parents. Madam Speaker, you find that many a times, those people, especially non-Kenyans, who come here and sire kids with our children, have means. Yet the parents or the mothers or the fathers who are left with these children, maybe there are people who are barely surviving. They are not even having anything stable job or anything to support those children. It is therefore very important to note that whenever somebody has had the responsibility of giving birth to a child, he or she should know that that is her responsibility or his responsibility for life. Madam Speaker, you find that many of the children who've found themselves in those crossroads, whereby they are left with one child, the ones that Madam Speaker was speaking about that emanated from the construction of roads here in Kenya. Those children might never be upright forever because they'll keep asking themselves so many questions, and they'll keep seeking to find out who their parents are. And they are not only the ones who are getting tortured, Madam Speaker. You find even at times those parents, because they are not able, they leave those children to others. Some leave them with their grandmothers, some leave them with their aunties, some even leave them to the community. And many of these members of parliament will tell you that many a times when they do fundraisings, they raise children whose part of their parents, one part of the parent has absconded their duty and left it to one parent who might not be able to take care of. It is therefore very important, and I think this motion
is very important and must be supported. It is also, as we discuss about foreigners or other people having kids with our children, with our locals and leaving them, it is also very important to think about it, to think about those who are doing it locally, Madam Speaker, and leaving them. As much as we have the law, we've never had the enforcement of law fully. Or you find that it's not easy for those parents who are left to take care of their children while others are having field day outside. I've not had that opportunity, nor the law is the law does not support them fully. It is not free. It comes at a cost here in Kenya. And you find many people, instead of fighting for child support or even looking for those people who have the responsibility of their children, they just leave it and struggle on their own. And many problems in this Kenya are brought about by people who are leaving their responsibilities. That is why even when we have issues of like the active issue in Malindi, in Kilifi about the Pastor Mackenzie, you find that most of the victims are children. Some of these children are mentally tortured, and some of them are miserable, and they are looking for a shelter. But then, Madam Speaker, even as we look and adopt the treaty, it is also good to ask ourselves if we are giving away our rights as Kenyans, if we are also giving away the rights of the jurisdiction, because if I am Kenyan, for example, I should be tried at home. It doesn't only apply to those people who are running away, but also Kenyans who are running away from other countries. And it will also be good to know if Kenyans have children outside, will they be tried or will they be taken care of here at home, or they will also have to be taken to The Hague or other jurisdictions. So as we adopt this one, the committee should also come out clear and tell us that will we be giving away the rights of our jurisdiction when we adopt such treaties. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I will support the motion, and I say that this is very good for us and good for the children of Kenya. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii County.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We are humbled as women when we are discussing issues that are so dear to our hearts. The issue of children rights, their protection, what actually begins at birth. There are countries that have strict laws that you cannot even go into a lodging with their girls. They are very protective. Like, Madam Speaker, when we were in South Sudan for the parliamentary games, we were told in South Sudan, you can't just speak with the ladies the way you want. Otherwise, you will have it rough. When we had a discussion in our committee about Saudi Arabia, they were telling us that if a Kenyan has a child, that child is not protected in that country unless you are legally married. Maybe we should also check on the laws of marriage. Another thing, how do we ourselves treat our children? Of course, we have men who run away. They even don't want these particular children to bear their names. Worse still, when there's a disabled child who is being involved in this marriage, they are usually not, you find the man maybe even chasing the wife away. They think that if the firstborn was disabled, definitely the second child is going to be disabled. Now you find these children, they don't even have emotional support. No one is supporting them. And I wish we had a direct line, like that one of 911, where we call to report these matters. And that direct line communication should be very active and responded to quickly, so that the culprits can fear and know that the lives of these children matter. When we are not serious with a particular law, even if we speak about it today, we speak about it tomorrow, Madam Speaker, nothing will be done. But when we are strict and people know, like when we had COVID, everybody knew we are supposed to wear masks. A 3-year-old, everybody was wearing a mask everywhere you go. So the same spirit that was in knowing that wearing a mask is going to prevent COVID is the same spirit that should come. If you have a child, you've sired a child elsewhere, it is your sole responsibility to give protection of food, to give protection of health. If possible, if you're sending away your wife with children, you must go ahead in giving them a house where they should live in. This thing should be taken care of with much caution, much concentration, much interest. It should just have everything that makes sense. But if we talk and the laws are not implemented properly, believe you me, Madam Speaker, what the committee has presented, which is very noble, which we are now talking to speak because we are celebrating and hoping that this thing is going to, the law is going to be enforced. If there are no serious measures that are taken, then we will be taking ourselves back. So I support the report of the committee and the way the members have come on board to make sure that every children celebrate their life, every children celebrate their recreation. There are those even who are not allowed to play with other children. The rights of our children are very vital. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Kisii County. The Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi, Member for Vori. Please try to
thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the ratification of these conventions, but Mr. Speaker, I also have some reservations, bearing in mind that there are 3 in 1. Some information that are pertinent, because we can rectify a convention, but we are not able to implement the same. Madam Speaker, this Parliament has a responsibility of protecting our citizens. We also have a responsibility of protecting our visitors from other countries. But we must be very careful on the dealings with our foreigners who come to this country. Madam Speaker, one of the things that I'm trying to check out is how do we make sure that we know the parent of the kid when it is born between a Kenyan and a foreigner. Madam Speaker, my suggestion is that we must have a registration process where each kid is registered, the mother and the father give their specific information on how we can trace them. Madam Speaker, we have to know the occupation of these people, and we have to know their immigration status, such that when these people leave this country, they can very easily be traced. So the convention need to have the rectification need to bear in mind the traceability of the parent. Madam Speaker, there is 2 types of abductions that I can conclude. There is the slavery, of course, of children, but also we have seen situations where parents, when they separate, some of them abduct the children and live with them without informing the other party. Madam Speaker, I think we need to find out when that kind of a situation happens, how do we treat the children and how do we treat the abductor. The other matter, Madam Speaker, is on the jurisdiction. There are so many countries which are not part of the Hague Conventions. And when we deal with the rectification like this, we also need to bring in Parliament that how do we deal with other cases who are not involved in the Hague Convention. I know some countries which are not part of the process, but I think this is a subject for another day because it's not part of this. But I think it's very important that we look at. Madam Speaker, if anybody, I am the person who has suffered quite a lot because I'm educating so many children. The so-called street construction site children. Madam Speaker, you are not the only one left. I also have many. And in a community where we are all black, you see some short, funny-looking characters. We don't know their fathers, and these children are actually left behind with their grandfathers and mothers. Madam Speaker, I think, and that's why I said, immediately the kid is born, if the father is allowed, we need to confiscate the document of these people such that they make a commitment on before they leave the country. Madam Speaker, the Batuk, I'm also a victim. Right now we have about 5 cases where the cohabitation with girls from our place, and these gentlemen, they have been transferred, and they left the house, and when they left the house, Madam Speaker, they came back through their proxies, and now they require to repatriate their properties. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is a very nice registration, but I think the most important thing is that we need to be very careful on how we are going to implement it. So I support with a kind of amendment if necessary. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Joshua Mwalio, member for Masinga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, which I want to speak on the report on the ratification of the Hague Convention on the civil aspects of the international child's abduction. My interest is if the ratification can be enforced to be able to recover the child support and the other forms of family maintenance, which was signed in November 2007 and came into force in 2013. Because this is the only thing that can be able to be enforced for the children to get their rights. Many of the parents that are absent and have been able to give birth to children and have left them in the countries and especially in the
Honorable member for Masinga, I have a point of order by the member for Keses, the Honorable Julius Ruto. What is out of order, member for Keses?
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I rise on point of order number 35 on the issue of quorum in the House, where we are discussing a very crucial matter that will implicate much to the country, Kenya, on the treaties that are international to be signed. I'm rising to call upon that the House is not in order because there's no quorum to be able to debate on this matter. Can we kindly ensure that we have the quorum to proceed to discuss this? Thank you.
The member for Keses is quite in order, so I order that the bell is rung for...
Can I finish? Can I finish then?
No. When the matter of quorum has been raised, we can only proceed to have the bell rung for 10 minutes. Honorable Mwalio. Huh? And while that is happening, you cannot go out, so I request that Honorable Mwalio, please take your seat. You never know, we may get quorum.
We can't have a forum now. We can't have a...
No quorum. Look at
Honorable members, the member for Keses rose on a point of order on standing order number 35 on the matter of quorum, and clearly the House cannot raise the requisite quorum. So, honorable members, and the time now being 1 minute past 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 27th of April, 2023 at 2:30 p.m.
Chamber to respond to questions. To this end, upon arrival at the Parliament buildings, a Cabinet Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, accompanied by the maximum of 3 officers from the Ministry, will be led into the chamber by the Sergeant at Arms. Other officers from the Ministry may take up seats in the Speaker's gallery. The Cabinet Secretary and the 3 designated officers will take up seats to the right of the chair and wait for the order for questions to be called out, upon which senators may pose their questions to the Cabinet Secretary as approved. The 2 senators at the back, kindly find your way to your seats again. After senators ask the question, the Speaker will give an opportunity to the Cabinet Secretary to respond. In making the response, the Cabinet Secretary will proceed to the podium on the right of the chair and make his or her submissions to the Senate. In the event that there will be need for consultations between the Cabinet Secretary and his or her team, the Cabinet Secretary may utilize the consultation rooms at the back of the chamber. After all the questions to the Cabinet Secretary have been addressed, the Cabinet Secretary will be at liberty to take leave, whereupon the Senate will continue with the business scheduled in the order paper for the day. Honorable Senators, in conclusion, and appreciating that tomorrow will be the first time that the Senate will consider questions in plenary, I take this opportunity to implore upon honorable senators to acquaint yourselves with the procedure in the standing orders on questions and the guidelines issued on the matter. I thank you. Honorable Senators, for those who are not around when we started these guidelines for questions to Cabinet Secretaries appearing before the Senate, this is a public document. You can approach the table office so that you can get a copy of this important communication. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader, or Deputy Majority Whip.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 25th April 2023. 1. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Executive of Nakuru for the year ended 30 June 2022. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Assembly of Nakuru for the year ended 30 June 2022. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Kitui Water and Sanitation Company Limited for the year ended 30 June 2022. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the County Revenue Fund for the County Government of Makueni for the year ended 30 June 2022. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Baringo County Emergency Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Deputy Whip. There is another paper to be read by the Chair on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations. Are you ready to do that business?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 25th April 2023. Report of the Standing Committee on the Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the County Boundaries Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2023. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Okay. Honorable Senators, before we get to order number 7, let me also make this communication on a visiting delegation from the County Assembly of Muranga. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the County Assembly of Muranga. The delegation comprises the Speaker, members of the Speaker's panel, and Secretariat who are on a benchmarking visit with their counterparts in the Senate. They will observe the plenary sessions on Tuesday, 25th April 2023, and Thursday, 27th April 2023. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Number 1, Honorable Moses Gashui, Deputy Speaker. Number 2, Honorable Francis Kibe, Leader of Majority. Number 3, Honorable John Kamwanga Mwangi, Member Speakers Panel. Number 4, Honorable Anthony Marubu Chege, Member Speakers Panel. Number 5, Honorable Hannah Wairimu Kamau, Member Speakers Panel. Number 6, Ms. Jane Nduta, Senior Clerk Assistant. 7, Ms. Helen Gidenji, Principal Answer Editor. Last but not the least, Mr. Peter Ndungu, Sergeant at Arms. On behalf of the Senate and on own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish you a fruitful visit. I thank you. Now we are on the number 7, questions and statements. And pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, I request the Senator for Kisii County, Senator Richard Onyonka, to seek his statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the status of pending bills of Kisii County government. Welcome, Honorable Senator.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Speaker. But before I go on, I would like to give my regards for the team that has come from Murang'a to come and benchmark in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I was also going to mention I wasn't very clear in the mind, and that's why I didn't raise the issue. I didn't know that there was a way on how I could have responded to your communication from the chair, because I'm actually very excited, Mr. Speaker, for members of this House who may not have been here before, when we used to have the interrogations between the cabinet secretaries and members of the National Assembly, because by that time, the Senate had not been effected. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you the engagement was serious.
Honorable Senator Onyonka Richard, are you making your statement or you are?
I am making my statement.
because
I thought by
your statement is on the
pending bills.
pending
Mr. Speaker, I thought by giving you accolades, you would let me slide through, but I will not. Let me go to the major issue. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1.
Wait, just a minute. Honorable Senator Giduku, Ramu Senator, you know this is not a caution.
A village market.
Approach them by, you must really appreciate that this is also for now. Go back to the bar and bow in honor of this house. Yes. Today my eyes are very keen. Honorable Senator, you must be very careful indeed.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for protecting me. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the status of pending bills of Kisii County government, as well as those of the rest of the 46 county governments in our Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I would like, number one, the committee to furnish the Senate with a report of all the pending bills for Kisii County government for the year 2016-2023 financial years. Mr. Speaker, the second question is, I would want the committee to explain the reason or reasons for non-payment and delay in the release of payments to contractors by the county government of Kisii and indeed many other county governments in the Republic of Kenya, despite the stipulations and timelines specified in section 139.2, 139.6, and 151 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Regulations 2020. Mr. Speaker, the third item is I would like the committee to indicate the total amount of pending bills of all the county governments in the Republic of Kenya over the same period, outlining the amounts owed to the contractors and all the service providers, and indeed, if any contractors have been paid, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Onyonka. Next is statement by Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango. What is your point of order, Senator Kenyu? It must be a point of order. You know, you cannot just raise rigorous points of order.
Bwana Spika, asanti. Mimi hoja yangu ya nidhamu tu, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ni kawaida yetu wageni wanapotutembelea kama huu ujumbe wa kutoka Murang'a umetembelea Bwana Spika. Na kwa sababu seneta wa kutoka Murang'a hayuko, nikachukua hilo jukumu Bwana Spika kama commissioner kuweza Bwana Spika, kwa unyenyekevu mwingi, kwa sababu Joe Nyoto ni mwenyekiti wa kamati ambayo anatuongoza, kamati ya elimu Bwana Spika. na itakuwa si vizuri, itakuwa ni kosa, itakuwa ni dhambi na itakuwa ni laana kwangu mimi kama sitasema ya kuambia wakaribie na wakiongozwa na naibu wa spika pamoja na kiongozi walio wengi.
Kinywa, mbona unaruka Seneta wa Nyeri na ndiye jirani zaidi? Wewe uko Laikipia, huyu jirani ya Murang'a zaidi ni Seneta wa Nyeri.
Bwana Spika, akufae kwa dhiki ndiye rafiki. Hakusema lolote. Mimi naona Nyuto hayuka na mwenyekiti wangu. Bwana Spika, mimi nataka
nimpatie dakika moja pia. Ni jirani mwema wa Murang'a pia.
Asante Bwana Spika, naungana na wewe pamoja kuwakaribisha ujumbe huu wa kutoka Murang'a, na nawaambia karibuni katika hapa Seneti, na hili jumba mtasoma mengi kama vile ambavyo mmekuja kufanya, na mimi nataka kuwatakia kila la heri wakati mmekuja hapa kwa masomo yenu. Na vile vile nataka kuwaambia mlifanya jambo la manufaa zaidi kumchagua Mheshimiwa Senator Joe Nyoto. Yeye ni mwenyekiti wetu wa kamati ya elimu, na yeye anaongea Kiswahili sanifu katika bunge hili, na ni mtu aliyebombea. Na sisi kwa sababu leo hayuko hapa, ameenda katika shughuli za kikazi. Kwa hivyo yeye ni mchapakazi na anaendelea kufanya kazi ambayo amechaguliwa. Bwana Spika, naungana na wewe kusema asanti na kuambia karibu sana.
Asante. Seneta wa Nyeri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Indeed, I want to commend you for noticing that Senator Laikipia actually jumped 2 counties to get to Murang'a. I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, sir, to welcome members of Murang'a County Assembly. Senator Nyoto, the senator for Murang'a, is indeed on official duties. He had told me that they are coming, but I had actually said I'll wait for your grace to give me the opportunity. But the commissioner here decided to use his mandate, his power that is vested into him as a commissioner, to actually grab the opportunity. But thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to tell the County Assembly of Murang'a that we indeed, I and the Senator for Murang'a, have decided to work together. We are forging an economic bloc of the Central Region, where I am the chair of all the senators from Mount Kenya. Joe Nyoto is our secretary, and he's indeed doing a very, very good job. Just the other day on Saturday, we visited Murang'a County on official duty because we've recognized that it is indeed important to make sure that we join Murang'a County and Nyeri County to become one county, not for anything else, but to forge economic and social development together. Karibuni sana, County Assembly of Murang'a.
Next time, Senator Nyeri, I need to know you end that passionate message. Next time, you must catch the speaker's eye. Otherwise, you could have lost your message. Senator Catherine Muma, what is out of order? Are you still claiming that you are neighbor to Murang'a also?
Mr. Speaker, women are Kenyans, so I can claim to be a neighbor to Murang'a because that is our nature. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise on a point of order pursuant to Standing Order 37 to seek leave of the Senate to adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the discovery of mass graves thought to be those of Pastor Paul Mackenzie followers who purportedly died of starvation as part of the religious conviction prevailing in Shakahola village, Kilifi County, since 20th April 2023.
Yeah, I can see for sure this is a matter of national importance. This is really a bipartisan issue. So I've confirmed indeed that you have the threshold attained, and I direct that the Senate will adjourn at 5:30 p.m. to consider that motion. Honorable Senators, there is a statement from the Senator James Molango. Actually, 1, 2, there are 3 statements, and I can see it's not around, so those statements stand defunct until the next sitting. Then we get the next statement, and the last from the Senator for Migori County, Senator Andy Okech. No, the last, there is another one more statement to make.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 531 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding threats to the security of border operators in Migori County. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, investigate claims of the existence of a criminal gang operating in Migori County, which has led to the rise of insecurity targeting border operators in Migori town. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should explain the circumstances that led to the killing of Lucas Makongoro and Edward Oigara on 14th April 2023, both of whom were border operators in Suna West, and injuring of another operator in Suna East during the same duration, called Victor Okumu Chacha. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the statement, the committee should be able to outline the measures put in place by the national government to deal conclusively with the causes of heightening insecurity with insistent attacks on residents, which have lately become rampant, not only in Migori County, but also in many parts of the country on border operators. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I want to give an opportunity for honorable senators to make comments on those 2 statements. The statement by Senator Onyonka and the statement by Senator Andy Okech. I can see there is a point of order from Senator Dedengwe's Steve Lumbisi. What is your out of order? What is it?
Sorry, Speaker, I pressed that button when the County Assembly of Murang'a, when you read the communication regarding the County Assembly of Murang'a.
Proceed. Yeah. Let me give you 1 minute on behalf of the leadership of the majority side. I give you the 1 minute at least to say something on behalf of the...
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join you and the Senate to welcome the County Assembly of Murang'a, led by the Deputy Speaker, to the Senate. Here in the Senate, I think you will learn a lot from us, procedural and so many other procedures that you will learn that will make your service to the county of Murang'a better, especially the leaders of the House. You will learn also the procedures of the Speaker's panel, and you will discharge your duties well when you go back. So take your time to learn more from us, the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minority Whip. There's another intervention from Senator Duarte Waheti Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I am from Murang'a County. That's my county of birth. And if you allow me, I will welcome the Speaker's panel from Murang'a. I want to take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to the Senate. Murang'a is a great county, and it's one of the best counties in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I know many of us are aware that it has been registered as the county that produces some of the best wives in Kenya, therefore building families, Mr. Speaker, and affirming the rights of women within Murang'a. It's within Murang'a County, Mr. Speaker, that we have many members of parliament who are female, Mr. Speaker, and have been voted in by the people of Murang'a. So it's a county that deals with the women very, very well. We are happy that you are here at the Senate. There are many areas that we can share. I serve in the Speaker's panel, and I believe by the time you leave, you will have learned a few tips, even as you observe the debate and you participate in the proceedings of the House. So welcome to Senate. Thank you.
Honorable Senator Veronica, I think your statement about Murang'a having the best waves is a statement of fact, because there is no member who has objected to your statement. So I think that is a statement of fact, and you carry that one. Yes, yes. Let's get Senator Manzo Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment on two issues briefly. One by the Honorable Richard Onyonga. I want to state that the issue of pending bills touches every single county in the country and also touches on the national government. Mr. Speaker, despite the challenge of the public debt, which eventually affects the nation division of revenue bill and affects the counties, it is only fair, Mr. Speaker, that the counties and the Kenyans who have been doing business with the government, whether the counties or the national government or even international community, get their monies paid, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this matter must be given priority because the practice has been that the businessmen, and especially the young ones, have borrowed from banks so that they can do projects for the counties, including Kisii and Makueni. At the moment they are through with that, then, Mr. Speaker, the counties then fail to pay for years. And I'm aware of quite a number of businessmen in Machakos, owing to the previous governor, not the current one, who have been auctioned and who have even suffered ailment out of the stress they have gone through while awaiting to be paid the monies for work already done in the counties. And Mr. Speaker, some of the counties, after the work has been done, then they bring excuses, petty ones, so that they can delay the payments. It will be straightforward that the division of revenue bill allocation to the counties is not enough, or look for solutions which, Mr. Speaker, as a House, we need to look at so that we can make sure that for those who work for the counties, for those private business people who have won tenders and are going on to execute them, have their monies not delayed over, so that the time of delay is not too much. Although the law has fixed it, Mr. Speaker, in the Procurement and Disposal Act, in the sections 151 of the same act, Mr. Speaker, we really, as a Senate, have to help so that the business people working with the counties, Mr. Speaker, have their monies paid. Secondly, very on one sentence on the issue of insecurity with the border people. Mr. Speaker, the border people are very vulnerable and they are useful all over the country. They give people directions, they ferry people at night, they are part of the security system, but unfortunately it is not only in Migori, but other parts of the country. They have been attacked at night by people who are originally customers who turn out to become thugs. And Mr. Speaker, the solution is if the border people form cooperatives, circles, and they have a way of getting to help each other and also work with the government and the security systems to make sure wherever they are attacked, then they can easily be rescued by the police. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kipkolil William Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also arise to support the statement by Honorable Onyonga. Mr. Speaker, when you talk about pending bills, it means there was some delivery of service by the contractors in those counties. Mr. Speaker, it also means that those contractors spend their resources to undertake those projects with the hope that the county governments will pay. Mr. Speaker, when there is delay in payment of those pending bills, it affects, Mr. Speaker, the lives of those contractors, their families, and they are unable even to plan and project for their future. Mr. Speaker, the function of this House under Article 100 and Article 96 is to protect the interest of the counties and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, this question raised by Onyonga is critical, not only in the counties, but even in the national government, Mr. Speaker. So it's important that even when governors push for remittance of more money to the counties, I appeal to the governors that when they receive their funding, they should start first by paying those contractors, because, Mr. Speaker, there is untold suffering. And I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, members of this House have been approached by their members from their counties to help them in this situation. It is becoming very, very challenging, Mr. Speaker, for our people. Even those members who have been doing well in terms of contractors, doing big projects in terms of roads, in terms of other projects, Mr. Speaker, they are unable to do it now. So my appeal to this House, and I want to agree with what Mohanso said, that I think this House, Mr. Speaker, should be able to come up with rules and regulations so that the counties are mandated as a matter of procedure, as a matter of law, to ensure that those contractors are paid, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is also another way of corruption being exercised in the counties. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when you've done your work as a contractor, you are supposed to be paid, then those who are supposed to pay, Mr. Speaker, sometimes put certain conditions. But before you are paid, you give some consideration. Mr. Speaker, it is an area we need to focus as a House so that we help the suffering Kenyans access their resources and be able to do their businesses even going forward. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And honorable senators, as management of this good House, we didn't need to stick to 1 hour, the statement hour for just 1 hour. And I can see there are a lot of interest on these two statements. We still have another statement by Senator Milaji. So I request if I give you an opportunity to just take advantage of just 2 minutes, just a comment, and that is it. Because we are not on the debate. So Senator Ososi, Gonfrey.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to comment on the statement by Senator Onyonka on pending bill. Mr. Speaker, how I would wish the committee that will be dealing with this statement widen this statement so that they consider other counties as well. Because the issue of pending bill is a problem in all the 47 counties, Mr. Speaker. And this pending bill, as has been alluded to by the Senator for Baringo, is another way of corruption. These pending bills is corruption. And if you look at the list of pending bills, many of them are fake. They have not provided services, but you find the fake ones are paid, and the real pending bills where people have delivered services or goods are not paid. Mr. Speaker, we must also look at the entire process of payment in our counties. We have had an engagement with the controller of budget on the issue of approvals for payment. You find that the approvals that are made are not what is paid. Other companies are substituted and paid, but the real approvals that were submitted to the controller budget are not paid. This is a scam, and yesterday when the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury appeared before my committee, he said that the Treasury is amending the system, automating that process so that we are able to deal with this problem of approvals which are not paid eventually. So, Mr. Speaker, I would request that the committee that will be dealing with this matter considers that this is a problem that is affecting 47 counties, and they deal with the 47 counties, including my own county, Vihiga County, where I know genuine contractors who provided services for many years have not been paid. Some of them have ended up being auctioned. Others have died out of stress. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious problem which requires intervention of this House because, as Cheptuma said, this House exists to protect counties. We cannot say we are protecting counties when we are not dealing with the serious issues affecting our counties like pending bills. For that matter, Mr. Speaker, I support the statement.
Thank you. Let us now hear the former governors. You know, matters pending bills are not mentioned in both the national and the county governments. So I'll give Senator Mandago Jackson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to weigh in on this matter of pending bills. Mr. Speaker, there is something that I think either as a House, Treasury, county governments, and the general public need to understand. Unless we have another definition of a pending bill is a bill of either a service or a project that has been delivered to completion but has not been paid and it was budgeted. I think what we are experiencing in counties are not really pending bills. These are ongoing contracts that have been rolled over from different financial years. They were ongoing. Their money is budgeted. The money is there, but the counties are failing to pay. So there must be clarity on the matter of pending bills. These are not pending bills. This is just impunity by officers who have been given the responsibility of examining and paying for services and goods received. So, Mr. Speaker, the matter that we are supposed to be addressing is the question of non-payment of ongoing contracts or contracts that have been completed in the course of time, and the money is there in the budget. There is a confusion sometimes between pending bills and ongoing works. And even the figures that are being given as pending bills, they are not actually pending bills because their money is there. What we need to address as a House, Mr. Speaker, is how are we going to make sure that any contractor, not just in county governments, even in national government entities, even in semi-autonomous government agencies, are paid on time.
The Cheptumo, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker,
Because Senator Manda
I have not been a governor before, but the member who has just been on the floor spoke about try to divine a pending bill. Is he in order, Mr. Speaker, is he in order for him to mislead the House? Mr. Speaker, a pending bill is a bill which is not paid, even if the project is not completed. Once a certificate is issued to be paid, Mr. Speaker, should be paid. It's a pending bill. But the members seem to give us the impression that it should be a service given, completed, approved, certified. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, that is the definition according to me.
Senator Mandago, can you give your
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. But the Honourable Senator did not even say which standing order he was raising on. However, Mr. Speaker, it is good he has also clarified he has not been a governor. So I think let me inform him from practice. Mr. Speaker.
That he has never been a governor.
Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, the matter that we need to address, and I think the statement by Senator Onyonga is very clear, that there are contractors who have worked, delivered, but they are not being paid. It is not that the money is not there. In this House, Mr. Speaker, you have had senators saying requisitions have been made for particular projects, for particular service, but that money has ended up paying others other than the ones that were being requisitioned for. So, Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, Mr. Speaker, we need to tighten the turnaround time and the requirements for payment of works and services that have been completed. Mr. Speaker, it is true. Most of these counties that we are hearing about pending bills and non-payment are counties that have undergone transition. These are counties either they have a new governor, and so is a new administration. And what have they done? And in this country, there are things that we must sort out. Government is a going concern. It's not about the individuals who hold the position. And when you come to that office, you continue with the work of that office. In this nation, every transition of 5 years, whether national government or county governments, you will hear, we are not paying these bills until we investigate, until because it was for the previous administration, as if government starts and ends in an election. Mr. Speaker, I think we must allow the public servants who are not political to continue doing their work in accordance with the law. And that is why we have a law on procurement in this country. That is why we have the Office of the Auditor General, which is not a political office. And if the payment has not been flagged off by the Auditor General not to pay, any public servant sitting on any payment, Mr. Speaker, I think action must be taken. And this is where we need to invite the Office of the Auditor General and the Controller of Budget to make sure that if there is need for legislation to enable their office to make sure that payments that are due are paid, I think as a Senate, Mr. Speaker, we shall be more than willing to engage in that discussion and even amend the PFM Act to make sure that contractors don't suffer. This is a country where we create entrepreneurs for 5 years and destroy them in 1 year immediately after election and begin struggling saying we want to create employment. Mr. Speaker, I support the statement by Senator Onyonka, and the governor for Kisii must pay all contractors who delivered service, and not just the governor for Kisii. All governors in this country must pay all contractors and people who have delivered service to their respective counties without any delay. I beg to support the statement, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Mandago. Honorable Senators, I communicated that I'm giving 2 minutes each for a comment on the statements. And I will be really restricted to give a very few others, maybe 3 or 4 from both sides. So, Senator Ogola Beatrice Akinyi.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. And from the onset, I want to support the statement by the Senator of Kisii County. Honorable Speaker, on pending bills, it is actually a disaster in our counties and the whole nation. Honorable Speaker, counties were supposed to be centers of growth. And Honorable Speaker, with devolution, our people were very excited. They knew they were going to do business with their counties. There are people on supplies and works. Honorable Speaker, everybody can attest that recently we saw a grown African man crying on the streets naked, Honorable Speaker. And you know how that bad is that a man who is grown can go naked crying before the people. And Honorable Speaker, soon after that, on the same public platforms, we saw that man, there's a report that he lost his life. And Honorable Speaker, that comes back to the issue of pending bills that Honorable Richard Onyonka has brought here. Honorable Speaker, works that have been done by our people at the counties has brought all misery. Honorable Speaker, there was the portion of 30% to women and the youth, and our youth of women all over the counties went for this work. So excited that they had a chance to pull themselves out of poverty. But what has this brought to the women and the youth at the county.
Honorable Senator, the Speaker does not do that. Once we say 2 minutes, you really stick to a point and then you deliver it. Senator Robert Ali Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give my contribution to both statements, starting with the statement by Senator Onyonka. The issue as described by Senator Mandago. The problem of pending bills is an issue that need to be understood first. A lot of the problems currently faced is problems arising from an administration that has changed hand, and that the incoming administration fails to honor liabilities arising from contractual engagement between the county government and contractors, failing to understand that it's a legal contract, not a favor. It's not a privilege. It's not something that is the prerogative of a governor or a new administration for them to make a decision whether to pay or not to pay. And two, the other issue that also we have is this misunderstanding in terms of what constitutes a pending bill. Pending bill, if a contract is done, planned for, budgeted for, and it's in the budget, that is supposed to be something that is procedural in terms of processing of payment as it is required. Liabilities that have not been budgeted for, those are the liabilities that form pending bill, and it becomes a major issue that needs to be dealt with. The issue Onyonka has raised may not be limited to Kisii County, but affecting other counties. It is extremely important that governors and new administration understand that contractual engagement entered into by previous regimes or previous governments is a legal contract that ought to be honored, and it's not a privilege in terms of what needs to be considered to be paid or not.
But both have the same timeline of 2 minutes. Yes. 2 minutes. You approach the chair and I advise you to squeeze your time. Maybe you make... Senator John Medu.
Yes, sir.
Can you say also which standing order are you liking?
I have it in my hand, Mr. Speaker. These days I have known the rules of this House very well. So I'm rising in regards to Speaker's Rules number 5, which is part of what guides us here. Senators are required not to enter into the chamber, lounge, or dining room without being properly dressed. I will not want to read the whole of it and the entire bit. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm getting a little impatient because you had promised to deliver a ruling on the second day that I made that request. Because, Mr. Speaker, and this is a very serious issue, we are just about to discriminate a religion in this particular House. And that is a matter that we need, because it is very clear here that the religious attire is allowed in this House. I came here in an Indian religious attire.
Who is not properly dressed?
No. Nobody is not properly dressed, Mr. Speaker. We only want your guidance.
Who is being discriminated, Senator Med?
It is me who came in an Indian attire in this House and you chased me out.
These are things which appeared last year.
They did not appear last year, Mr. Speaker, because, Mr. Speaker, you know why...
but if you are a gentleman enough, you could have worn the same attire, then you come and raise your issues when you're in that...
No, you had said that you shall rule.
Today you are properly dressed, so let us make progress.
So I'll come with it. I presume that you have allowed us to come.
Just tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Tomorrow come with it.
Okay,
then we handle it when you are on.
I have many of them, Mr. Speaker. I'll come with one tomorrow.
Okay, come tomorrow. We'll meet here tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning. Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to...
You know, I think I don't want to look at also these rights when you are making your points. Because we really need to strict ourselves to the 1 hour, statement hour, so that we can do bills and other motions.
I hope that is off the ticker. Mr. Speaker, in the public sector accounting standards, there is nothing like pending bills. It is not an accounting term. It is a Kenyan creation, a creation of laziness in accounting, a creation of a conspiracy where one governor leaves office, the next one does not want to pay. Mr. Speaker, I've chaired committees that have looked at the Auditor General's report on pending bills. And the auditor, Eddie Ouko, the last act he did before he left office was to audit pending bills across the country. What did we do? We took it to IBEC. IBEC decided to audit the work of the Auditor General. So each county went back to set up pending bills verification committees. Mr. Speaker, the matter has been going on for so long that in a county like Kirinyaga, which we considered last week when the governor, who's also the chair of the Council of Governors, appeared before us, they owe suppliers 200 million Kenya shillings. And Mr. Speaker, the age of that debt is 7 years. For 7 years, women, youth, persons with disability in Kirinyaga have not been paid 200 million shillings. And then, Mr. Speaker, you know, they have the cheek of saying that the Senate is the one that is not supporting devolution. Mr. Speaker, I want the Chair Finance Committee to broaden this inquiry because the report of the Control of Budget has the numbers that Senator Nyonka is asking for, but we must make sure that we interrogate that report county by county. There is no reason why the Control of Budget brings a report to this House every quarter and we take no action. And then this thing called pending bills piles up. Mr. Speaker, finally, I support the statement by Senator Eddy. And Mr. Speaker, we should not look at Boda Boda as a nuisance. Boda Boda contributes to close to 4% of Kenya's GDP. If you look at their 1 billion per day collection, we should not only
Senator Kajwang, you have done so well. That has, it's past 80%. So, Senator John Deritu. Senator Agnes Mudhama.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Nasimama kuunga mkono taarifa iliyoletwa na Mheshimiwa Onyonka. Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana kwa sababu wakati mwingi unaona katika sheria zetu tumesema ya kwamba vijana wapewe kazi, walemavu wapewe kazi. Lakini baada ya hao kupewa kazi Bwana Spika, unapata baadaye hawajalipwa Bwana Spika. Na si gatuzi ya Kisii peke yake Bwana Spika. Ni gatuzi zote za nchi ya Kenya unapata watu wengi hawajalipwa. Waegezaji, wafanyikazi Bwana Spika, wengi wanasononeka kwa sababu tayari wamekopa mikopo katika mabenki Bwana Spika. Inakuwa ni vigumu sana kwao kuweza kuendelea na biashara ile Bwana Spika. Ilhali hizi counties zinaendelea kupokea pesa na kuchagua ni nani watakayelipa Bwana Spika. Ikiwa wewe huwaungi mkono kisheria, kisiasa wewe haulipi Bwana Spika. Kamati ambayo inapaswa itahusika na hili jambo Bwana Spika, waangazie haya mambo kwa kindani na wale watu ambao wamefanya kazi kwa sababu wamefanya kazi walipo pesa zao Bwana Spika. Na watu wakilipo pesa zao Bwana Spika, utapata kaunti zetu zikiendelea kunawiri kwa sababu pesa zitaenda mashinani Bwana Spika. Kama vile sisi tunavyosema watu waanze pale mashinani kukipanda juu Bwana Spika. Hiyo itawezekana Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kaunti zetu ziweze kulipa deni za wale ambao watu wamefanya kazi Bwana Spika. Wale wa bodaboda kama vile Bwana Eddy alivyosema Bwana Spika, kwa taarifa yake, watu wa bodaboda wanapaswa kuchungwa kwa sababu kazi ya serikali ni kuchunga mali na maisha ya wananchi Bwana Spika. Na wanabodaboda wanafanya kazi zao. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, wanapaswa kulindwa kwa sababu wanalipa ushuru Bwana Spika. Lakini ukisikia wale hizi county hawa bodaboda wameanza kushambuliwa Bwana Spika, inatutia kiwewe Bwana Spika, kwa sababu wataanza na bodaboda waende kwa watu wa magari na hatimaye watatushambulia hata sisi Bwana.
Asante sana Senator Kinyua. Senator Mudhama Agnes. Senator Kavindu.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Asante kwa kunipa hii fursa ya kuingia kwa hii statement ya Bwana Onyonka kutoka Kisii. Bwana Speaker, nataka kuunga mkono kabisa na kusema hakika hii mambo ya hizi pesa ambazo hazijalipwa wale contractors na suppliers ambao wamepeleka vitu na wamefanya kazi katika counties ni sugu sana kwa kila county. Kama Machakos County tuko na hizi pending bills za kutoka 2014 to date na bado hazijalipwa. Bwana Speaker, ningeomba wale wataangalia hii waangalie katika county zote na hata kuundwe jopo ya kuchunguza kwa kila county ni watu wangapi ambao hajalipwa pending bills zao. Na mambo hii ya bodaboda pia hii ambayo imeletwa na seneta mwenzetu, watu wa bodaboda wanafanya kazi kubwa sana, maana kule ambapo hakuna magari watu wa bodaboda ndio wanafanya usafiri na wanastahili kulindwa na pia kuheshimika watu wa bodaboda. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Asante sana. So both the statements are referred to the respective committees, but I'll advise that as members have really requested, the Finance and Budget Committee should try, as they reply to the statement by Senator Richard Onyonka, also to include all the 47 counties and table a report. This also that we can see how other 47 counties are faring on pending bills. There is the next statement by Senator Miraj. And today I've observed that Senator Chelgai has misread the two ladies, trying to speak to ladies when they are transacting business. Now he closed over and took you behind the... So Chelgai today is on a mission. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Milaj.
I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding landing rights for scheduled international flights to Mombasa International Airport. In the statement, the committee should state the reasons for restrictions or denial of landing rights for several scheduled international flights to Moi International Airport, MIA, in Mombasa County. 2, inform the Senate of measures in place to mitigate the effects of the impact of the suspension of direct scheduled international flights to Mombasa and the denial of landing privileges on the tourism economy of the coast region. 3, provide reasons by the Ministry of Roads and Transport for revoking Turkish Airlines and Qatar Airways landing licenses for direct flights to Mombasa, as well as grounds for rejecting their reapplication. 4, establish the basis of the Ministry of Roads and Transport to deny the request of Emirates, KLM, Turkish Airlines, and Qatar Airways to land at Moi International Airport. 5, state measures by the government to return to the open sky policy in order to attract more international traffic to MIA aimed to promoting the tourism industry at the coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Miraj. Let me give a few members to make comments again. Senator Mohamed Faki, Senator Mombasa County.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Crystal?
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted some, maybe my ears are not clear, but the statement was from the Senator to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. Is that correct? When it seems like it's more due to transport and roads.
I'll give you your 2 minutes to make a comment on the statement, because I can see you are lined up. No, I'll give you 2 minutes to give us reasons why you feel it should go to transport. Senator Mohamed Faki, proceed.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa ambayo imeletwa bungeni na seneta mteule Seneta Miraji. Mheshimiwa Spika, kabla ya COVID, yani mwaka 2020, ndege nyingi zilikuwa zinakuja Mombasa. Turkish Airlines ilikuwa inakuja Mombasa, Qatar Air ilikuwa inakuja Mombasa, na nyingi nyinginezo ambazo zilikuwa zinasafiri kuja Mombasa kuleta abiria na kufanya biashara katika mji wa Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mbali na Nairobi Jomo Kenyatta, Moi International Airport Mombasa ni moja katika vile viwanja vikubwa viwili ambavyo vina uwezo wa kuchukua ndege zote ambazo zinaweza kuruka katika ulimwengu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba kutokana na ukosefu wa ndege hizo, biashara katika kaunti ya Mombasa na kaunti jirani zake imedorora kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa wageni wanaokuja kutalii katika fuo za bahari za pwani na mahali kwingineko. Mheshimiwa Spika, ndege nyingi ziliwahi kuja Mombasa. Tukiangalia wakati tukiwa wadogo, Kondo ilikuwa inakuja Mombasa, British Airways inakuja Mombasa, Lufthansa ilikuwa inakuja Mombasa, na nyingi ambazo British Airways nyingi ambazo zilikuwa zinashuka Mombasa na kuruka bila ya matatizo yote. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba serikali imeweza kulemaza biashara katika Moi International Airport ambao ndio uwanja mkubwa kabisa mbali na Jomo Kenyatta hapa Nairobi. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu kwamba kamati ambayo itashughulikia swala hili lishughulikie swala hili kwa undani zaidi ili kuona kwamba uwanja ule haukai bure mchana. Kenya Airways peke yake na labda ndege 2-3 ambazo ni za kukodi zinakuja moja kwa moja kutoka Ulaya. Mheshimiwa Spika, iwapo ndege hizi zitaruhusiwa, Turkish, Qatar ilikuwa inakuja, Turkish inakuja, ikiwa zitaruhusiwa Mheshimiwa Spika, hata Emirates zitasaidia pakubwa kuinua biashara katika ukanda mzima wa pwani. Na ukanda wa pwani unakuja Mheshimiwa Spika mpaka sehemu za Kitui na kwengineko ambako hakuna mafikirio ya viwanja vikubwa kama hivyo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono na tungependa swala hili liingiliwe kwa ndani zaidi, kwa sababu hakuna sababu Kenya Airways inapata hasara kila mwaka na hakuna ndege nyingine ambayo inaweza kutua pale, na uwanja ni mkubwa, unaweza kuhimili ndege yoyote, ndege aina yoyote ulimwenguni. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante sana. Senator Catherine Muma Muyeka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this statement. Mr. Speaker, I fully support Senator Miraj on this statement and would like to ask that the committee go further than just inquiring about Moi International Airport, Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, we have 4 international airports in Kenya. We have the international airport in Eldoret. We have the international airport in Kisumu. And I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, the 3 international airports, Mombasa, Kisumu, and Eldoret, are underutilized. Mr. Speaker, if we actually operationalize Kisumu and Eldoret, being in the Western Kenya region, which is the food basket of the country, we can begin intra-Africa trade with neighboring countries so that we can have flights from Eldoret and Kisumu to West Africa and to other regions of Africa to enable the African countries to trade with our people in matters relating to agricultural products and many others. Mr. Speaker, therein lies a great opportunity to actually open up the region from Western Kenya, in Western Kenya, to open up the trade opportunities, and with that, open up employment opportunities for our young people. Mr. Speaker, I therefore support and request that even as we spoke recently about industrializing this nation and getting the counties to come up with the industries, particularly agricultural industries, that we will actually operationalize this airport.
Senator Shakil Habdara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement by Honorable Miraj, Senator Miraj. Mr. Speaker, Mombasa is a tourist destination. And the reason why they moved the port of Mombasa to Naivasha, it is because they want to make Mombasa a tourist city. And a tourist city should be able to open its transport sectors in all sectors, either road or air or anything, or by sea, so that they open the opportunity for tourism. And the airport is one of the opportunity whereby tourists, they use so much to come to Mombasa, Mr. Speaker. It is unfortunate that after COVID, this opportunity was not opened. Actually, all the flights which are supposed to come to Mombasa, whereby Mombasa being a tourist destination, they are closed and causing a lot of inconvenience to the tourists, Mr. Speaker. We therefore urge the government or the ministry to look into this sector and make sure they open that airport, open all the other airlines to Mombasa, so that they do not cause inconvenience to the tourists who wants to come to Mombasa and Coast Region as a whole, Mr. Speaker. I thank you so much. I support.
Last but not the least, Senator Wambua, Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, you realize the interests are on my left-hand side. Don't ask me why I'm not giving the right-hand side. Senator Rito, I can assume, but you are very low, below the, you are yet to get to you. The land has not captured you yet. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll only say two things about the statement by Senator Miraj. One, there is a growing trend, Mr. Speaker, which is alarming. And I wish that committee, actually I sit in that committee, and I can see my chair is there. A line must be drawn, Mr. Speaker, between what is good for Kenya Airways and what is good for this country. In the process of trying to protect Kenya Airways, there are a lot of things we are getting wrong as a country. We need to expand our economy. We need to grow our transport sector. But every time that there is an attempt in that direction, then the consideration of what impact that would have on Kenya Airways comes in the way of making that movement. Mr. Speaker, I say this because a similar statement, and this will be my last comment, a similar statement was brought to this House by